Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
You are now tuned into the cut.
Cutting and scratching.
Cut.
My cut is correct.
Each cut is totally arranged.
While chillin' the cut.
Yo, welcome back, people. That's hip hop backwards for people that don't know. Welcome all of you. It's good to have you back. Saltiest spot on the East. We have an absolute pillar of the industry here, folks. It's JoRun Bombay. JoRun Bombay is here on the cut. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a big day.
Absolute
big day.
pleasure. We're so lucky to ever have had you here and have you here still. Not just in this podcast, but in Halifax. Like and I'm speaking for the whole region, just wouldn't be the same without your presence. How's it feel to sit as a live human and hear stuff like that?
I don't think I've ever even really processed it. It's just part of my life, just another thing, I feel like you guys are like,
Buttering you up?
Yeah, putting a little too thick.
You think?
Because a lot of people now, that are out now that don't know who I am,
sure.
And don't know what happened in the 90s
sure.
or the 80s. So it feels like, and I have been told by people in town, not that recently, but who are you? And that kind of just okay, every separate era, people are going to forget you, and then you have to. Unless you're constantly doing your
sure.
thing, it's easy. You're easy to be forgot.
Right.
I think don't sell yourself short.
No. I'm not even talking about just
for
me.
For those people that don't know their history,
right?
You know what I mean? But
also
don't sell yourself short.
I'm not so much. I'll also say this. I was probably the first person, because back when the first crews were in Halifax, nobody bigged up each other outside of your own crew, right?
Right.
Nobody did that. That was not that there was rules, but it was almost like, if you ain't down with me, you don't even exist if I'm doing an interview. I think I might have been the first person to say, you know what? Unless we acknowledge each other, there's no scene. So it's something I do. I've been doing since I left high school, and I've not stopped, and I was hoping that would catch on. So, a lot of people did get forgotten, but I'm the one that's usually the first to say, oh, can't forget this guy.
Right.
This guy's very important in the scene.
Right.
This guy did that. So I'm hoping people eventually, when I'm really forgotten and we're all gone and a whole new generation is our age now, that those people would just know to just mention to people that, what are the pillars, setting a good example.
Yeah, I think one of the things I want to make very clear to you is those people that don't know who you are, when you're building a structure like a pyramid, sure, maybe they're putting a flag at the top today. It's their day to put a flag up, but it's gonna they're up at the top of something that you helped build. You put a giant, stone at the bottom, and that stuff's the stuff that people stand on, whether they know it or not. I don't know who built the bridge, but it holds me up when I go across it.
Right.
And you helped build this, and I think that's undeniable. My sources, whether they be all kinds of sources that I've spoken to, it's just kind of people that knew that were there, they speak of that truth. And so let me ask you, when is that? We're talking about this beginning. When's the first time that you knew you were making hip hop or rap, or that you knew you were doing that? Because I've listened to you, I've interviewed you before. You guys were doing it before it really had a name, in my understanding of it, that it was sort of we're just doing this, we're mimicking something. Even the great Zipper story, that you weren't sure what it was, but you're copying it. Did you know you were mimicking hip hop at that point, or just mimicking a sound?
I think that's more of we didn't know, there wasn't a name for it when we were listening to it.
When was this?
This was in different phases. The first year that I heard Rapper's Delight was December 1979.
Wow.
And Fizz was in my class at the time, as a new friend that just happened to be in the neighborhood that was in my class. So he was around, and I hung out with him. So keep in mind, we are already listening to R&B and soul and stuff like that as just listeners.
Right.
going out and playing Star Wars toys and stuff, and the music just happened to be blaring outside of the balcony and stuff like that. So
is this community making noise basically? Like you're outside playing and this is just sound systems being played, or is it?
No, I first heard Rapper's Delight at a Christmas party. The last day of school, December 1979, probably December the 18th or something like that. And the last day of school, we go into school at 9 o'clock. We are all sent to the gymnasium, which is all set up as a kind of like a Christmas party fair. Okay?
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, we were in the poorest neighborhood in Halifax.
Right.
The south end was the rich part of the neighborhood. So we're in the we're in the north end. We're trying to make a fair with what little we have. There was a ride there that, just give you an idea of how low budget it was. There was a stage in the gymnasium where you have these pull-out things where you hide
riser?
chairs.
Yeah.
Okay? They made a ride out of that where they pulled it out, they emptied out all the chairs, and they would have lights all underneath and other kids dressed in black so you couldn't see them. And you laid 10 kids on this pulley thing. You pull them into the dark, and other kids would be like grabbing at you and stuff like that.
This
And
is
that was
like
For Christmas?
that was for Christmas.
Hashtag
It was
me too.
But there was
Holy.
that was the most popular ride at the Christmas fair, and there was a lineup of at least 50 kids.
No
So
way.
I'm in line the second time going in. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm with my little sister.
Shout out.
Yes, and we're waiting to get in line, and it's already 11:30. We're free. Like there's no more classes until January 1980.
So you could leave.
We could leave, but
this
we're
was
having
so dope.
fun, And the DJ just got in to set up on stage. So I'm waiting for my second time on the ride with my sister and like 40 other kids in front of us and behind us. And my mom comes in and says, time to go home. And we're like, oh, just one more ride. And she's like, I'm waiting 15 more minutes and then you're going home. So the DJ's setting up and they play the newest records that just came in. So he was in the DJ pool. So whatever was new to him was new to everybody else. And
Right.
he premiered stuff. He premiered Chic, Le Freak.
Yeah.
Aw, Freak Out.
Yeah.
For the first time. And it seemed like everybody around me already knew the song. So I was like, this is weird. Why haven't I heard this song? Everybody's singing it, right? And then Chic Good Times comes on. And I'm like, I never heard this before. And then Rapper's Delight comes on. And to me, it was just another disco song. It's not like I was like, oh, this is a brand new music. It was just blended in with everything else, but there was no singing on it. So I'm just like, okay. And I remembered pieces of the lyrics. So like, my mom is like, come on, Christine, come on, Joe, let's go. I'm like, all right. So we're walking across, and the gymnasium is huge, right? So we're walking really slow past all the rides, and it was enough of a slow walk that we got to hear the 45 full version, where the 45 is like, 4 minutes long. The 12-inch is 17 minutes long. Okay? So he was playing the 45, and I got to hear little pieces of the lyrics on the way that stuck in my head, and it was to me, it was almost like a comedy thing. But it wasn't the first time I heard people rhyming on a record. There was other stuff. There was a genre that came out just before then. It was called CB rock. It was kind of like hillbilly type of thing, and it was just like, it was over country music, but they weren't singing. They were doing like Breaker 19. Is anybody there? Come on back, truckers, and talk to Teddy Bear.
Right.
They were rhyming, but it wasn't
Right.
rap, you know. So it was to hear them on a beat, over the snares, over the kicks, just doing it fast, going hibba habba habba da habba
Yeah, yeah.
wow, this is incredible. So anyways, I go back home. We celebrate Christmas. I get my Christmas toys, whatever. New Year's happens. It's now 1980. Oh, the big 1980. What does 1980 bring, you know? So we go back to school.
Brought you? All right.
It was 1980.
All right.
We go back to school, and first day of school, I hear pieces of the lyrics. Everybody in the class knows pieces of the lyrics.
Right.
And just randomly, they would say them, like, with another kid. Yeah, Scooby Doo and all this stuff. But it was almost like they were setting up a punchline to say a piece of the lyrics. So it'd be like, I got to go home and eat. I can't hang out tonight. I got to eat some dinner. The macaroni soggy, the peas are mushed, and the chicken tastes like wood. And I was looking at them like, oh yeah, I remember that from the song. And it started to grow and grow and grow. And then more people would say longer parts of the lyrics. And I still never had the record. So
did you know at that time that was hip hop? Or you're still
No,
just a new, it just sounds a little different. It's disco different.
It was disco with no singing on and guys talking really fast,
Right.
which I never heard before.
Right.
So it was different, but that wasn't.
It wasn't.
That was the first phase of knowing this thing exists.
Okay.
The second phase is when it got even bigger, and that was it was a skiing trip, a class skiing trip in 1984. I was going to Martok, and I was getting bullied on the bus on the way there. I was getting hit in the head with bottles and shit like that. Because I was the youngest one in the class. I started school early, so by the time everybody reached 10 years old, I had to wait for summer to pass.
Right.
August came, and then I was 10 years old, and then the new, and then
I had the same experience.
right. So
I was
me
always
being
a year back or a
right.
year younger.
right. So I was always getting picked on, and but you say bullying is bad now. It was bad then.
It was really bad.
I had my head cut open during that ride because I had a bottle like constantly. The people behind me hit me with the bottle. I turned around and couldn't see who was doing it.
Right.
So at that time, and this is a really funny story. There was a guy in front of me. It was the two coach cushions, and in between the coach cushion in front of me, he hands me a tape, and he's like, "Pass this down." And I look at the tape. It says Rico M Productions on it. And I already had a tape in my Walkman. I had like Hall & Oates or whatever pop thing was out at the time. It might have been Hall & Oates or Bruce Springsteen or whoever was out at that time. So I take my pop tape out and I put this tape in. I don't know what the hell is on there, but I'm trying to forget what's going on behind me. So I pop the tape in. And the tape wasn't rewound, like it was right in the middle. So I just played it right from the middle. And I heard it was a group called the Disco 3. And he rapped a story. This is exactly what I heard. I put the tape in and he said, "Marky D, ha, my throat is weak. Get on the mic and let me hear you speak." He said, "Listen to this story. I'm going to tell it like I can about Peter Parker known as Spider-Man. He climbed from building to building, from tree to tree, and sometimes mingled with the young ladies. He would stick to the wall like a piece of scotch tape. He wouldn't use the door. He used the fire escape. Now Spidey was chilling on the news one night, just looking for a freak with a super sight. He heard a shot or two, 3. There was a 4th. Then 2 big dudes ran out the door. Like a judo flick, goddamn they ran. One had the gold, the other gun in his hand. Spidey put on pursuit. They shot once, twice, but Spidey was on him like white on rice. Click. I turn it off and going, what the hell did I just... Okay, Spider-Man was my favorite cartoon character.
Oh, really?
And I was a huge, huge fan of parody. I had Wacky Pack stickers.
Gotcha.
I had Mad Magazine.
Gotcha.
I loved parody.
Right.
So to hear them do a rhyme about Spider-Man that probably would never have been approved by Stan Lee.
Sure.
It was some rebellious, ghetto version of Spider-Man, written by guys that lived in New York, street dudes. So I said, there's no way in hell I'm giving this tape back. I need to listen to the rest of this tape. So I looked ahead of me, I looked behind me, the people that were bullying me, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I put the tape down my pants, and I waited, and I'm sweating. The guy in front of me, he's just like, did you hand the tape? I'm like, I gave it to them. And they were just like, what'd you do with the tape? And I gave it to them. They go over to the guys that were bullying me. Like, where the hell is the tape? And they're like, he didn't give us no tape. And I showed him my head, and I'm like, they hit me in the head if I was going to tell, but they have the tape. So then the front guys started bullying my bullies while my bullies wanted the revenge for me lying. But they were not...
mastermind shit.
But it was not thought out.
Spontaneous.
I just wanted that tape. I wanted to hear the rest of the tape. So we're on the top of the skiing hill, the ski lift, right?
Yeah,
Going up really slowly. I try to get ahead of the guys that were picking on me. So we go to the top of the hill, and they have these branch-off trails, right? So I go to the branch-off trails before they could see where I'm going, and it's right in the middle of the woods. So if you kind of go off trail and you just kind of like bury yourself in the snow and just kind of duck down, the other skiers go right past you, and it's just like they're never going to find you. So I did that. I found a ditch that was up to my waist. No, it was up to my chest. And then I kind of ducked down, put my hood on, and I listened to the rest of the tape.
Amazing.
In like chest deep snow.
Chest deep snow, but I had a full snowsuit on.
I want to say
so-
that's cold. But
No,
you know,
but I had a full snowsuit on, so
Yeah.
I was not uncomfortable. But I was so
upset.
freaked out about how dope this tape was, and there was no music, there was no guitars, no horns, nothing. It was just drums and these dudes telling stories, and the whole side was the same tempo. I didn't understand what beat mixing was. I thought it was a 45-minute song.
Right.
But they beat mix next song in, so it's seamless.
Right.
And I thought there was a 45-minute song on one side and a 45-minute song on the other side. And I heard, and at the time, I didn't understand that they had doubles of records cutting up back and forth.
Right.
But I heard the record going back and forth, and I didn't know how the sound was being made. But it was almost like rubbing two pieces of concrete together. The way that was my. If you never knew what scratching was, you had to describe it.
Yeah.
So I needed to know what was going on. I knew it was on the radio because the announcer used to come on and say 98.7 Kiss FM. We got cool DJ Red Alert on the Wheels of Steel, and I was trying Wheels of Steel.
Is that on this tape?
That's on the tape. The commercials,
Right,
everything. It
right.
was just a big seamless mix,
Right.
right? And the rhymes on it were like nothing I ever heard before. They were like way better than Rapper's Delight. Melly Mel had a rhyme.
Yeah.
He did, and he was dissing Run DMC. And he did a really good job at it. I mean, like, because Run DMC was at the top,
Yeah.
and it was trying to end all the Sugar Hill career stuff. But the last breath of Sugar Hill was Kool Moe Dee and the Treacherous Three answering back LL Cool J before the battles that you guys know. He would call them out on a song called Gotta Rock before he went solo. So it was just guys fighting. And it was also the very first answer record in hip-hop that was on that tape. It was Roxanne Shante doing Roxanne's Revenge
Right.
before she got a cease and desist order
Right.
to stop selling the record, because she went into the studio and just rhymed over UTFO's record. They didn't even remake it. She just rhymed dissing them over that record, and they pressed it. But then the original group was like, you can't do, you got
That's ours.
That's ours. You can't do that. So they had to stop making that record, and they had to remake a beat on a new drum machine. But the original version she did
Is on that tape.
is on that tape. And then there was like 75 answer records after that. Roxanne's Doctor, Roxanne's Baby, Roxanne's Big Brother, Roxanne's Parents, The Death of Roxanne, Roxanne's a Man.
Yeah.
It was every... So it was the first time, and this going back to me being a fan of parody.
Yeah.
Every one of those records was almost a parody of UTFO Roxanne, which is kind of like the song was about a fictional character, Roxanne. They were all trying to get with her, and she turns them down. And they had a plan to put out a real Roxanne, but Roxanne Shante beat her to it.
Yeah.
So then, and she was 14 years old. She was the same age I was when I heard the tape. And she was rhyming. So that's when it occurred to me that I found out she was 14 years old. I was 14 years old. It's like, there's no age for this thing. Technically, if I want to become a DJ, I could become a DJ. I thought you had to be 20 years old or be in a musician or a band or whatever. So then, after hearing that tape, I would purposely try to find a way how this is recreated so I could get into it.
So what was your... So at that point, you discovered there's the land I need to understand, the sound I need to know. How do you then, as a guy in Halifax at 14 years old, go up? What's your next step where you're like, how do I start to understand what these sound? I don't even know where they're coming from. I like how. What do you do then? What's the next thought process? And like, how do I get closer to understanding?
Experimentation.
So what do you have that's letting you experiment? One of my questions to you, and I'm
There's
I
no
wanna ask you,
internet
what was
then.
your first? Oh, no.
There's
kidding.
no internet. I had nothing.
What
to
was
work
your
with.
first like setup then
My first setup
that let you start experimenting?
Okay, here's the very first thing I did when I found out I wanted to find out what this was.
Yeah.
I would go to my mom and say, I want a scratch box for Christmas. She says, what the hell is a scratch box? And I look at her and I'm like,
For like the cat?
I don't know what one is, but I want
Litter
one.
box? No.
But I want one because I thought it was a box
Right, right.
that you scratch on, like
Makes
some
sense.
kind of metal thing. So that was my first impression. I was trying to narrow down as much possibilities to what this thing could be. And as I started to get more tapes, little clues were dropped in that that this was on a record. And one was, the other DJ that was on there was called Chuck Chillout. And he had this thing that he used to do and I don't know why he did it. It was he must have been really high or something that he did this. But he would play a record, and right in the middle of the record, it'd be just like he'd play Dougie Fresh the Show, and be like da 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 da, do it, 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 and then he would let the record go. So I knew the record was playing, and he just stopped the record. And he was moving it back and forth. So I said, okay, well, he's doing that with the record. But I still didn't know that the needle was on the record because I never heard a record going back and forth to know what one would sound like.
Right.
So the first thing I started to do was taking records, putting them on the floor and go, and it's like, oh, no, then that's not it. And I was ruining records that way.
Yeah, I just pictured the record.
Yeah, and I would ruin records going outside on the concrete and go,
Whose records are these? Yours? Parents?
yeah,
Allegedly.
yeah.
You
I
didn't
don't
try
think
it
so.
on their turntable first, though?
I
You
didn't
obviously had
know.
a turntable.
You didn't know
I
to do
didn't
that
know.
because
I didn't know.
the needle hadn't come down
I'd
yet,
never
I
been
guess.
to a radio station in my life at that point. So I didn't know a setup of turntables.
Yeah.
I've never seen one.
When you saw the DJ at the Christmas concert fair thing, were you immediately interested in the setup besides the music? Were you like, what is this? Or did that go, it was just the music first? It wasn't one of those like, what is that?
Worried
Well,
about the rides, man.
Yeah, you were worried about getting underneath, getting in the lights.
Right. But
Getting grabbed.
he's also elevated, right?
Right.
So you just see his shoulders and a table.
Yeah.
You're not behind
You're
him
not
to
up.
see it.
Yeah, you're not on top of it to
But
see it.
and I hadn't been to the roller skating rinks yet. And that's when I would actually see a setup, and that comes a little later.
Okay. So you, at this point, who else is around you? Do you have any friends that are at the same level of investigation as you, or
Yeah.
with you in this process, where they're going, I got an idea what it might be, or how does this sound to you? Who else was with you on the process on that
Fizz.
mission? Huh?
Fizz was there the whole time.
Shout out.
Because he would also get the tapes.
How are you getting these tapes?
He knew Eric Melbranch.
Shout out.
Okay,
Yeah.
Eric Melbranch would go away in the summer and get these tapes. He would tape them off of. He was like close enough downtown New York that every Saturday night he would tape WBLS and he would tape Kiss FM. The whole summer he was in New York, and then September school comes back. He would come back. And in the Towers, there was a corner store there.
Yeah.
And there was a business there. It was a donut shop. And I don't know what business we had drinking coffee that early in our life. But we would all meet at the coffee shop, drink coffee and donuts, and then go to the school across the street. And must have been like grade 7, 8, and 9 when we were doing this.
Damn.
And I'm still question what that business was a front for. There was
Let
nothing
the kids drink coffee. We're moving weight back here.
Right. So there was nothing in the store, no pictures on the wall. It was just like white walls and a one rack of donuts that they would get at Tim Hortons, and they would sell coffee and donuts there. So I really didn't
That's
know.
a front and a half.
Yeah, so I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was legit. I just don't know. But
It was the first Tim Hortons ever.
but Eric was always in front of the donut shop, and he had Kangos for sale, and he had his tapes. So he would let people tape the tapes, and I think Fizz got to tape the tape before I did. But I didn't tell Fizz that I actually stole one of the tapes when I was on the bus.
Do you still have that tape?
Yes.
I figured.
Is that tape like one of those generation tapes where it was dubbed off?
No, this
So that's
was
one of
the
the original
original.
ones. Okay.
Wow.
So it was full quality chrome tape off that tape. All the other tapes we got later were tape of a tape of a tape of a tape. So they were sped up
Yeah.
a little faster,
Yeah.
and there were more treble and highs, and mids
Yeah.
than bass. At least until we and at least until we actually got the tapes when Eric was like, well, this is old to me now, here, just take the tape.
Right.
Which would sometimes would happen, but if the tape was hot, he would keep them, and then you want to tape it off of me. Now, here's why a lot of those tapes were shitty quality. We didn't have double-decker tape decks.
Oh, so you were going in live through the air.
We had
Yeah.
2 boom
Right
boxes,
next to each other.
blast it,
Yeah.
and record into the microphone.
Yeah.
So that's how we sometimes dubbed the tape.
Right.
So if your man was talking behind you, that came out on the tape.
That was in the tape.
Right.
Somebody's mom bitching them out.
Yeah.
Turn
was
that shit off, JoRun.
Yeah. So my first copy of Rapper's Delight that I had, my sister is laughing at all the punchlines, and I'm going, shh.
Right.
Because that's the only way I could have taped it off of somebody. So with the Kiss FM tapes, that's kind of how we were doing. Even Fizz, his tapes were kind of like that too. But then, what was a big groundbreaker for us was no sooner than those tapes started rolling in town, there was an independent hip hop record store on Gottingen Street. In probably around November, December 1985. And they had the newest hip hop records directly from New York.
Shit. What was the name of that place?
It was called Third World Records.
Third World Records.
And it was right at the foot of Kennard Street, right where Kennard ends and Gottingen Street is right there.
Right.
So we would go to the record store and actually hear the full quality, full bass of some of these records. And the records were expensive. Like, we're too young to be having jobs. You know, we're 14, 15. We're not legally not old enough to work.
Yeah, yeah.
So we would go back to our parents like, oh, I need that Bad Boys record. Lottie Dottie 12 inches there, please. And, you know, like, there was nowhere else in town you can get that record.
Right.
Samuel Reckerman didn't carry rap records for another 4 years.
Wow.
You know, so there was nowhere else. There was that store. And we would ask him, do you have a list of what the hottest hip-hop records in New York are right now? And he would have them. And he would say, pick out the stuff that you want. And it was expensive, but we would look at this list and go, oh, my God, like a new Dougie Fresh record. Oh, my God, Run DMC's had that as a 12-inch. Can you imagine what that would sound like with the full bass? Because we had the one with no bass on it. It's like it's the actual 12-inch, and it's like, okay, get this. So when I started getting those 12 inches, that's when I found out what scratching was.
Huh.
And I would go on my parents' turntable, put the needle on, go back and forth and going, that's it. That's what Chuck Jello was doing. Wow. So, and nobody was saying, why don't you try this? I did this on my own to figure out what scratching was. But every time he bring back the record, you have no reference on like that tape. No, that tape. You don't know how much of that tape is actually the record. If he's extending it 4 times,
right,
it's not on the record extended 4 times. It's only once. So when you play the break and then the song starts and you're like, wait a minute, okay, Chuck Jello made that break always go over. And every time he brought it in, he was do what. So I went on my turntable, do what. I'm like, that's it. So I started practicing at that point, and it was on the record was Inspector Gadget, Bad Boys featuring K-Love.
Wow.
And that was the first record that I said, I heard Chuck Jello play that record and said, now I have a reference on what to do.
Right.
And I picked up scratching in 2 months. I had no crossfader, but I picked it up. So
so you're still scratching a single record
I'm on one turntable.
on one turntable.
And the volume knob was round because it was an old stereo, right?
Yeah.
So I knew what I needed, and that's when I asked my parents, can I get a mixer? And I got a mixer that Christmas. So then I got to really practice the turning down. Now keep in mind, I was using common sense. There's still no other DJ showing me this is how it's done. There was no instructional videos. It was all common sense that I was using. So then I got to the point where I was good enough, and I was invited to a basement jam.
Who's hearing you to let you know you're good enough? Like, who invites you? Like, who's around you that's hearing that? Obviously, Fizz
Well,
is still around.
Fizz was around, but I think he wasn't like, oh my God. He was just like, oh, you got it, you got it, you
Right.
know. But it wasn't until I got to a basement jam, where like 6 months after practicing, a kid in my class knew that I was doing my thing, and he said, "You need to go to this basement jam that's in the pubs." I don't know if you guys know where the pubs is.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up right by the pubs.
What?
I grew up right by the pubs.
So okay, but there's a lot of people don't know where the pubs are because technically it's not called the pubs. I think the people live there call it the pubs.
Yeah.
Windsor Street, end of Windsor Street, right?
Yeah.
With the
On
with the
top of
graveyard.
the hill? Yeah, with the top of the hill. Yeah.
Where the graveyard
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and on the way to Halifax Shopping Center.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're on the same
Like
page.
Romans Ave and
No, the Romans is it's like that's in the pubs, like in down by the bottom. If you come up the hill, you know where the Titanic
Sure, yeah.
graveyard is, like that's
Oh,
the
and that,
top.
okay, yeah.
So it'd just be like, you know, pubs, graveyard, and then there's a couple more houses, and then
Right.
it's all commercial.
I
So
got you.
I get invited to the pubs. I don't know what the pubs is like now, but it was not a place I wanted to go alone
Okay.
at that point.
Okay.
They'd
So
always stop you and check you. You got your pub pass? You got your pub pass? You ain't from here. You got your pub pass?
It was like it was one time I was in a car and I was just playing with some kind of whistle thing, whatever, and a guy reached into the car and grabbed it right out of my hand, smashed it, and then looked at me like, "What?" And I was looking at him, and the guy that drove me there was like, "Look forward, let's get out of here." Like pubs there was no
the real
joke,
deal.
right?
That
So
sounds like the
you
pubs.
you don't want to go there by yourself, so do you put together a little team to go with you?
No, I went there with a dude that was in my class that had really nothing to do with hip hop, but he introduced me to the LL Cool J single that was out at the time called "I Need a Beat" before his album came out. So he said he knew that I was a fan of doing the hip hop stuff, and he said you need to go to this basement jam. So I go to the basement jam. He brings me there and then just leaves me there. So I don't know nobody there, right?
shit.
So I'm in this house. I don't know nobody there, right? But I made friends while I was there, and there was this guy I'm still friends with to this day. His name is Steve Sly. He's on my Facebook.
Yeah.
So he was another DJ there. And the record that was hot at the time was Rock the Bell. So everybody was looking for electric guitar scratches, because of the Rock the Bell. So he had Kiss records and, AC/DC records, and he was already cutting up different, electric guitar sounds. And he was just like, "Hey, you're a DJ too? Okay, cool. Let's see what you got." And I started scratching, and everybody's head turned around and was just like, "Where the hell did you come from?" So I just kept on going, and then this we popped a tape in the boombox that was in the middle of the table at this basement jam, and what it was kind of like a Frankenstein monster of equipment. Everybody that comes there has to bring a piece of equipment,
Right.
because none of us own a whole studio. But one guy might have an echo pedal. Bring your echo pedal. You have a turntable. Bring a turntable. You got a mixer. You got a sampler. Bring the sampler. Right. So there was this table,
With
just
stuff.
hacked equipment, wired up, soldered together. It was amazing because I've never seen a studio up until that point.
Right.
So to me, that was just kind of like, wow.
Right.
And they showed me the sampler, and it was this new sampler that Radio Shack put out at the time that you could just talk into it, and you have 2 seconds of sample time. Wow. You might know that one. It was like black and orange. It came out in 1986. Before that, a sampler was $20,000.
Wow.
That's how much a sampler was. But that year, Radio Shack started making them, but instead of having 2 minutes of sample time, it was
20
1.4 seconds total.
Whoa.
So you got to speak it in the microphone and say something, and I said DJ, and I try to say my full name, but that cuts off because there's almost no sample time. And then you go on, it goes DJ, and I was like, wow.
I'm a DJ now.
No, like I didn't know that's how
could do that.
sampling was done, right?
Right.
Because I would hear on the Kiss FM tapes the people playing with sounds of a recorded, and I didn't know how it was done. Right. So when it was showed in front of me, I was like, I'm like, oh, let's record this. And it was also the first time I ever saw a beat machine. And it was a Dr. Rhythm. It was the same beat machine used in Beat Street for
Right.
this,
Oh, okay.
the scene of the guy that had the cowboy hat on, and Wanda D was, I was born and raised in the South Bronx Street. I was proud to say that my life's complete. That beat machine in the background was the one at the basement jam. Wow. So while we're jamming or whatever, and we forget to press record. So down the stairs comes this dude, dark-skinned dude, little afro, and he has leather coat on, and he walks down the stairs, and he looks at what we're doing. He's like, cool. And he looks over my shoulders like, cool. Takes off his coat, hangs it up, then walks back over to me, and he's like, and his expression was, he's really doing that. Wow. He thought I was hand syncing Milli Vanilli.
Right.
It was too
Like
much to believe.
Ghost cutting.
Because, yeah, he thought I was ghost cutting, right?
I think I just made up a term.
And he thought, I say Milli Vanilli, but
No, but I mean,
for
I know.
lack of a better term.
Yeah, like
So-
hand syncing.
Right. So he thought it was hand sync, and then he stopped and he saw, he's really doing this. And then he looks at the rest of us and he says, nobody's recording this? And he reaches over to the box, presses record, so the beat machine's playing, the DJ, doom, 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 and I'm scratching, say what, sip, sip, say what, sip, 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 say what, and he's just like, grabs the microphone, turns on the echo machine, and we're recording it. He wants to rhyme, but he's too busy talking about what we should do, and that was our demo. Him just talking, going, would that be really crazy if you had like both of you scratching at the same time? And he was saying
It's
stuff like
echoing a bit too.
it's echoing
Yeah.
and it's the beat.
Nice.
So we recorded 10 minutes of
You should.
yeah, you should that'd be really cool. Two DJs going crazy. And that was
I'm
our
a
demo.
baby Huey freak out right now.
Right,
Listen
so
to that.
that was the first demo I got. Was him just going, "Oh man, he's really doing it. Oh shit, over this
Who
beat."
is this person in the leather
He
coat?
was the son of Rocky Jones,
I bet.
Patrick Jones.
I bet Rocky Jones made that coat, or had someone make that coat.
Who knows?
Do you know Rocky
But
Jones had a whole leather industry as a whole?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Shout out.
But Patrick Jones was his name,
Okay.
and his MC name was J-Rock, the original
The
J-Rock.
original J-Rock.
And he said, we need to make a crew. Seriously, guys, all the talent in this room right now, we need to make a crew. Steve Sly, DJ number 1, Joe, DJ number 2, me as the MC. And I said, I have some friends. I don't know if we can use a beatbox, but I have a friend back home. His name is Fizz, and he can beatbox. So he was just like, yeah, okay, like, I trust that he's good. I'm like, cool. So that was our first crew.
Wow.
We went back to these basement jams. I might have been back to 4 of them. And then it got to the point where, because we're in somebody else's parents' house, we're making too much noise, we're there too often, so then we had to find somewhere else to do it. So we would go to other people's houses. He would write his rhymes. He's like, show me what he wrote. We still didn't have a studio. Everything that we had to record had to be live. We didn't know what multi-tracking was. We had never seen a reel-to-reel machine to record the vocals separately from the
Right.
beat or whatever. So if we recorded a demo and we messed up, we had to erase
Start
the
over.
whole thing and
Right,
start
right,
all
yeah.
over again.
And you didn't have the room to like keep that and go again, right? Like you
Right.
couldn't have. So you literally like, okay, bye.
Well, what we did was we filled up a whole side,
Yeah.
and if we messed up, it's like, okay, no, keep the tape rolling, and we go back and edit the tape.
Right.
So a lot of our old demos, you would hear pause, jump back in,
Right,
thing like
like-
that, because that was everything was common sense, right?
Right.
We had no other way of figuring out how do these guys rhyme. Like, how do these guys on Rapper's Delight rhyme that long and not mess up? We didn't know. We didn't know nothing about punch-ins or anything.
The bar was set artificially high.
Right. So we had no choice but to be good performers, right? And most of the demos that I had were like entire sides of songs, even to the point where sometimes it'd be 10 minutes where the beat machine stops and he's just telling jokes to us in the room, not knowing that it's still recording. It was just a really interesting tape. It was just like a day in the life kind of tape, right? And you know, our voices are really high pitched because we're younger then, whatever. And Tracy was on a lot of those tapes, and he was hilarious.
I bet.
It got to the point where we had to shut the tape off because Fizz was on the floor crying his eyes out, laughing at some of the ridiculous lyrics Tracy was saying. And it was some good times. Like, it was so ridiculous. And I still have some of those tapes. I'm sure he doesn't want me playing them because it was us, like, just messing around. It wasn't a real song, but it was us in our natural element of practice, trying to get good at what we were doing because we wanted to be in the rap contest that was the next year.
So there was enough of an awareness in the city at that point that there was a rap contest. So you guys were doing your thing, but there was still, it was growing with other people as well. There was becoming an awareness. And so what year is this that this rap contest happens? And is this at QEH? No. Where's this rap contest? And what year is it?
Well, the first rap show, the kind of anchor, even though it wasn't the first rap, it was the first major artist to come to the neighborhood that local people can open up for. It was CKDU brought Africa Bambaataa. It was 1985.
Damn.
It was kind of funny because we had an expectation of what a Bambaataa show would be because Planet Rock had been out for 3 years, 4 years already.
Right.
So we expected Soul Sonic Force to show up and rhyme and do the song live.
Right.
Because that's like, we didn't know he was a DJ, right? It's not what they advertised him to be. So when he showed up with turntables and all he was doing was playing other people's records, and he had a sideman, I think it might have been Jazzy J, his record man, to do, like, he'd hand him the records and he would play. A lot of the crowd just up and left out of boredom. Like, they didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
And I was outside where the doors were open. You can kind of look in and see what was going on. He was on stage.
Where is this?
This is, what's the place called now? It's called Theater Lofts right now on Gottingen Street. It was the theater on Gottingen Street.
The old casino? Like
there was two of them
Capitol?
next. I don't know what it was called then. I saw movies there before they turned it into what it is now. It was
because I remember the place that's global now, that was a theater.
It was the one before that.
Yeah. I know
It's
what you're
called-
talking about. Yeah, the lofts now.
Yeah, so the name will come to me later, watch. But
We'll
Bambaataa,
edit it back in.
yeah, Bambaataa played there, and there was a local battle DJ at that time, and his name was Tony Diggs. And he had a crew in Halifax called the Care Crew, and they would perform at the Dixon Center.
Shout out.
And he was already a DJ. I'd known of him and New Beginning, because at the time when I first saw them, I was at the Commons. It might have been like Halifax birthday or something in the summer, and we were hiding. We had just got out of a bad situation. We had to hide in the crowd. I'm not going to go into much detail about that. Say I was a bad kid, right? So we're hiding in the crowd in the Commons. There's like 100,000 people there or whatever, you know? So
You're hiding allegedly.
well, yeah, we're getting lost in the crowd. Me and the guy I was hanging out with, Andrew. And while we're kind of like looking around, it's like, okay, we're safe. You know, we're buried in a crowd.
Yeah.
And then we kind of look on stage, and it's New Beginning. MCJ,
Yeah.
became MCJ and Cool G. They're on stage. They had a show. I was like, okay. So that's when the first time I saw them. That was before I was doing the DJ thing. So I kind of knew they were around because MCJ was my older brother's class. And he was one of the kids that were saying the rap lyrics in class as jokes. He was one of those guys.
Setting up the punchlines.
Right. He was one of those guys. So he was in school with us going way back before the whole rap thing happened. So I just knew him from the neighborhood. And he had his crew. They would perform. I would go sometimes with Fizz to these shows at the Dixon, and we would watch them. And of course, he was doing the scratching thing or whatever, and I already knew what scratching was.
So all this time I've been talking to you, and I think one thing that sort of surprised me to find out a little bit was, like, all this time we're talking about you as sort of a DJ, not as a guy with, not as an MC. But there was a time, like, talk to me about Witch Doc.
You know what the rapping part of me was?
Yeah.
That was me pissed off because I was getting stood up by the guys that I had booked to come in and rhyme. And that was me basically going, you know what? You guys ain't even going to show up. I bet I can do a better job than you. And then I would rhyme. I would do their part.
Really?
And sometimes my lyrics were aimed at the person that stood me up.
Really?
So if I'm sucker MC or whatever, it was aimed at the person that stood me up that day that was supposed to be on the mic that day.
Right.
That was not a conscious decision. That was me just saying, you know, if I'm going to get anything done, I can't depend on I need to be good at everything. And I still apply that to this day when I hire musicians or whatever, and a bass player stands me up. It's like, playing a bass can't be that hard. I got 2 hours to figure this out, and I'll do it, and I got a bass line. So
Right.
I did that with everything I did musically, and kind of outside of music, where if somebody stood me up, you know, even like to the point where like I learned how to detail cars because the guy that was detailing the cars was not doing his job. And I said, okay, give me the grease, give me this, and let me figure this out on my own. So I applied it to everything I did. I just hated being stood up. I was at the mercy of other people. I could not move forward because somebody else didn't show up. So with rhyming, that was the whole reason the Witch Doc thing even played in. Then there was a big show we had at Cafe Olay, and Flexman was not allowed to perform on stage. Long story short, the RCMP showed up because
Flexman is on stage.
Because he was on the stage, but he wasn't legally allowed to work in Canada, and they knew he was going to get paid that night, so he wasn't allowed to perform. So what was my plan B? I had to rhyme his lyrics.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It's always good to have a plan B. That was the only reason I rhymed. And people were like, oh, you're so good, you're so good. And it's like, well damn, like, after being stood up for so long, I have to fill people's spots. Of course I was going to get better.
Sure.
It's not like I was trying to be the best rhymer. It just naturally I got better at it, you know?
I think that there's a really strong lesson there that, like, you know, maybe it was just natural for you, but for a lot of people to become as self-reliant as possible.
Yeah. That also came with when MCJ and Cool G got signed. Our scene was at a height,
Sure.
but it was at a height for the wrong reasons. Everybody in the neighborhood had an MCJ and Cool G card saying, we're going to get signed.
Right.
They were totally at the mercy of them, their success. And it was unrealistic expectation of people in the neighborhood to just expect, because you knew him growing up, that he was going to get you a job and you're going to be on tour making millions of dollars. So when the scene fell apart, when people finally realized they're not coming back, this is their life, this is their job, and people just got really bitter, and people just hung up their mics and just escaped, and it was like, I'm not going to rap anymore. And our scene died at that point. And it got to the point where it's like, how the hell did we get here? Are you guys really that lazy that you're going to depend on other people? This is only going to work if we, somebody has to light the match. We got the gasoline here. Who's going to light the match? Not me. I was like, the hell with you guys, I'm going to light it. And I went out and bought my own equipment, and people came to record with me. And I said, we're going to have to do an exchange because I know none of you got no money.
I was just going to ask you that exact question.
You guys got no money, so here's the exchange. You work for your studio time, so when I record songs with you, you're exclusive to my shows. If you want to do a show for Sloan or Trush Hermit opening for them or whatever, you talk to me first. Because unless we're all sitting at the same dinner table and we're eating together, unless we're doing that, this whole thing is going to die again. So I had everybody that I was hooked up with that we were on the same wavelength. and we liked the same music. We liked the same rappers,
Right.
and grew up to the same music. I record you. You pay me back by we do shows. I make the money at the door. You don't make the money at the door. You're paying for your debt. So you ain't got to. You're getting exposure, and you're paying your debt. And a lot of people agreed to that until the money started coming in, and they saw it coming in my pocket, and then they forgot. Why are you getting paid? Like, why am I recording you? And egos started getting big, and I understood why people wanted to branch off. It was understandable. You see me at the end of the show counting thousands of dollars. Like, where's my cut? And it's like, oh no, this is the debt you owed me for recording. And people were just kind of like, why am I not in JoRun's position? And it's because I was the one who lit the match. Remember the room? Who's going to light the match? The gasoline is here. Everybody took a step back, and I'm like, the hell with all you. I'm going to light the match. You guys forgot that? So it takes somebody lighting the match. When the flame starts coming up, that's when everybody wants to come to the front. I started that fire,
Was there
but
any-
in an innocent way. I'm not saying that,
No.
but innocent way. You're proud of the thing you become
Right.
because of this togetherness type of thing.
Were there MCs that graduated out of that process in a way where they earned back all of their studio time and were like in a position to say, what about me? Like you know what I mean? Because in that mathematics, if you didn't need as much time.
You're going to have to explain that a little better.
Okay, what if I don't need a lot of time from you once I'm good? We don't need to spend a whole lot of time, and I perform for you, and you get the money. But there's got to be, at some point, there would be a way I could work myself to an equity or out of that in a way. I think.
We didn't sign no papers, though,
Yeah.
right? This was a handshake deal.
Yeah.
So anytime these guys wanted to up and leave, the best thing that came out of that was these guys were in the studio with me. Some of these guys were just rappers. That's all. They didn't even own their own microphone, which to me was so weird.
Right.
When I first started, when I went to that basement jam, every MC that walked in had a little suitcase with their own microphone. That was a given. If you didn't own your own mic, why are you a rapper? It's different now. But
Very different.
But at that point, I just was recording people, and they saw the process of me editing samplers on the rack mount, and they're just like, so that's how it's done. Slowly, one by one, those rappers wanted to be producers.
Right.
Classified was one. 6'2" became one. Buck 65 became one.
Damn.
Everybody at that point was just a rapper, but slowly the step was, so he's sampling off of records. Let me go through my parents' collection. Then the next studio session, they're like, I got this Rick James record I was checking out. Can I loop this part? Yeah, let's do it. And I think the first person out of my crew that were doing that was Nathan C.
Okay.
Roughneck.
Yeah.
So he would bring his parents' records, and I could see the process. Like, eventually he's going to stop rapping, and he's going to want to be a producer because he was really interested in the process of the beat making. It just blew him away. So he started peeling back on the rhyming just a little bit. The rhyming thing was fun. It's what made him start and stuff.
Right.
But then he was kind of like, it sparked something in him going, like, wow, this is super creative. This is so nerdy. This is so me.
Yeah.
6'2" was the same thing. He was in a group with Hip Club Groove.
Right.
He was just a rapper. But then he was just like, wow. The sample, the little blue light that has the percentage 87, 86, 85, 84, 83, 81 point, and you saw all the math that was involved in chopping samples or whatever. I don't know the comparison of people doing it now, but to see that little blue light, to see the wave going as you're doing the dial, and see the wave and just like the edit, it would just, people would gather around the sampler going,
Right.
And just blew people away. So they started bringing their own records. Then slowly they said, Joe, when you upgrade your equipment, can I buy some of your old equipment? I said, yeah, you want to buy my drum machine? My old drum machine or whatever? And sometimes they would go out and buy a sampler. But samplers at that time were still about $3,000.
So there was quite a period where you sort of were like the studio. Like you were the guy who had what was needed.
Right.
Right.
But that, I had to work. I had to work to that point because
Sure.
before I had my studio, I was still going to other studios where I was paying $50 an hour.
Right.
And after I record a demo, I had to spend $700, and I had no money to press it. You know, I actually shot a video.
point.
I shot a video on film. I spent so much money shooting the video that by the time it was developed, it's like, how do I put this thing together? And we shot a video downtown with J-Rock and myself on 8mm film. Like, you actually put it frame by frame,
Yeah, yeah.
put up to the light, you see it. We shot a full video in 1989 on Barrington Street with my crew for a song that we just put a single out for. And I didn't get to put the video together for 20 years. I had the reel-to-reel
Wow.
in my possession, saying, one of these days I'm going to figure out how to do an edited video. And then when the technology started, the price of technology started going down, and I started getting a laptop, then it's like, okay, now I just need to find a place where they can digitize this.
Right.
And I edited it and I put it online. So I was always trying to think ahead, but didn't think like, what if there's a brick wall ahead? I never thought about that. It was just like, I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
I feel like you'd figure out how to be a mason, and then like reverse engineer the wall and like get over the wall. Like everything so far that I've that I put together as I think about you is run into impediment to what you want to do.
Right.
Figure out how to do it yourself.
Even way before music.
So you get to the wall. I don't see
Right.
it. I mean, I'm like, he'd figure out how to make a wall, then he'd like do the math backwards and
But
get through the
even
wall.
further-
Something like that.
Before the music, every watch that I got for my birthday,
Took it apart.
I took it apart. I wanted to know how things worked.
Yeah.
So it was probably in my DNA, like to just,
It's a very mathematical, scientific mind.
yeah, I just was curious. I wanted to know how things worked.
Right.
That interested me more than anything. I wanted to know how parody worked. Why was parody funny? You know, I would buy so much parody and hoping it would soak in. And it's like, why do I love this stuff so much?
Right.
So I was just curious. I was always curious.
What do you think about the idea of like adversity and being important for creativity? And with too easy of a lane, great sort of discoveries aren't made. What do you think about like a philosophy of that sort of view of creativity?
I almost can't picture myself as being a kid that was born 15 years ago and being where we are now. I can't even fathom that.
Right.
Like, so to put it where it's just like, to have it so easy, all I could say is like, must suck. It must suck. Must, because I don't know what that's like.
Right.
You know, I was born in 1970, you know, like we had almost nothing then, you know? So my only way of knowing how the world works was you take stuff apart and then you can't put back together. You got your ass whipped, or you learn a new thing.
That's a very
you know?
good point about the watches, right? You were taking them apart, but you had to get that shit back together properly.
Right.
Or be like, where's your present? What the fuck?
Right. So it was just curiosity. How does this thing work? Why are they hiding the machinery? What are they hiding from us?
You were
Open it
ahead
up.
of your time with design too, because that became really cool for a while to like see the watch, right, working in there.
Well, they had some
think you were ahead of your
see-through
time.
watches.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You know.
Those were nice. Tell me about what you're working on right now. It's like, well, I know you're working on a lot of things at once, but I want to hone in on something, which is recreating like party soundtracks, so to speak, from 80s, I believe, New York, right? Similar to tapes you were getting, or what's the relationship between what you're recreating, or am I using the wrong word there, and what you were getting back in the day? How close are they in sort of like what they're about?
I'm trying to figure out what exactly you're pointing at. I'm doing a lot of stuff right
Yeah.
now. So are you talking about the hip hop beat recreation stuff?
No, I'm talking about, aren't you making like there was like party soundtracks where it was recorded and the quality's not that great and you're improving that quality.
Oh, you're talking about the
I
Rock
forget
the
the name of
Discotheque.
it. Yeah, sorry,
Rock
yeah.
the Discotheque.
Yeah, I find that really like a fascinating project, but based on your beginnings, getting these things, imported and like the quality breaks down, and that's something that sort of, I don't know if it bothered you, but you certainly noticed it at the time. And now you're like going back and kind of, giving this generation an opportunity you're fixing something very weird. There's a weird parallel to me there that I really like.
Right.
I'm just wondering, was that was always something you wanted to do? Was it?
No,
do you think it comes from there?
you know what that came from? That came from. Okay, before I get into that, just kind of lead to this. My favorite hip hop era is the '80s. A lot of people are like, oh, but Biggie, oh, but Tupac, but for me, my favorite era is before I became a DJ, when I was just a fan. That's all I was, a record buyer, lover of music, right? So, I'm trying to remember the question again.
Talk to me about the
tapes,
Rock the
right,
Discotheque.
Rock the
just tell me
Discotheque.
about that
Okay.
project a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I was a fan of the music.
Yeah.
80s was my era. By the time the 90s came, rap to me was dead. I was a part of what was going on, but I was not as inspired.
What had died?
As soon as Hammer and Vanilla Ice came out, I was so convinced, this is it. This is the end of rap. It's over. So I kind of slowed down a lot.
Right.
And I was Buck 65 was actually showing me the new records. Like, no, it's not dead. Here's some of the new stuff. And I was not impressed by a lot of it. It was like it was missing the heart. There was more politic involved, less innocence. It was not about fun anymore. It was about holding your gun, and I couldn't appeal to it. It was, it was not about rapping about Spider-Man anymore. It was about your Glock and all that stuff. I hated it. It just irritated me. So he brought in this record, and he was like, you need to hear this, Joe. And it was a record by a group called Baritone Tip Love. And he had, he was going back and sampling a lot of the breaks from the 70s. And he had this clip in between songs, and it was called WOLD, and it was a parody of WBLS, where you hear songs like, and they would play like 7 or 8 clips of like R&B songs.
Sure.
But his whole clips was those battle tapes from 1977 to 79. And I always heard of those tapes, but I never heard them. And he played them as a skit, WOLD, where you hear. And the clips were so short, but they were so interesting, and they were really crappy quality. You knew that it was recorded on a boombox
Right.
at a party. Some of it was distorted, some of it was like, it was just mostly bass, so distorted. And there was little clips like 4 seconds, and there was one clip, it was the Cold Crush Brothers. No, it wasn't the Cold Crush Brothers. It was Force MDs, but they were called the Force MCs, and they were re-singing, what's the New Year song, Old Ensign?
Oh yeah.
And they changed the lyrics, and they were rhyming over substitution, 2 copy substitution. So they were like, the Old Ensign. So they were like, we are called the Force MCs with DJ Dr. Rock. We EMCE and we EDJ and we're go. And they were like chopping up their vocals while the beat's going with TEGMCEN, and they were singing Old Ensign, and I thought it was like, that's brilliant. And then another clip, which is like this record, he was like bringing back super sperm. And it was like, and he said something, and I didn't know the context, but he said something like, DJ, he got more records than Dolly Parton got chest, and then and it would clip, and it was like all little funny little
one-liners
clips,
and things.
one-liners, and then that EMCE and we and it was like distorted tape. You knew it was recorded in the 70s,
Right.
And then the whole thing would cut off, and then he'd be like, all happening now, and I would keep rewinding that thing, and I'm like, I need to contact this dude. This guy was obviously from that era, and he has those tapes. So he was writing for a magazine called Rap Sheet
Right.
at that time. It was Rap Sheet, I believe. And he would have he would do these things called urban funny cartoons. And it was around the time when the Ice Cube album was out. He went solo. So a lot of it was political in that direction, but it was cartoons. And then at the end of his cartoons, he did this thing called Top 10 Breaks to Look For. And it was always records I never heard of. So I would go and buy those records and be like, this guy really knows his stuff.
Right.
So and he said, stump the soul man, write to me at, or call me at blah 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 blah. So I contacted him, and I said, I know some records or whatever, right? So I called him and I said, yeah, I got your number from the rap sheet or whatever. I just want to know what you got. And I was naming off breaks for him. He was like, got it. What else you got? And I was like, I was getting frustrated. I was like, this, I can't stump this guy, you know? And then I finally hit some Canadian records that had breaks on it. He didn't know about them. So we arranged a trade. And he said, what records do you want? And I said, I don't want no records. I want those tapes that was on that skit. And he dubbed those tapes.
Nice.
And he sent them to me. And once I got those tapes, there was a battle. One of them was a battle tape with Cold Crush Brothers and Force MCs.
Holy shit.
And I listened to the whole thing, and every 20 seconds I heard a clip of it. And it'd be like, that's where Wu-Tang got. That's where Fat Joe got. Oh my gosh. It was like
Really?
the world opened up. I understood what these guys were not telling people. And there was a routine on there. It was like, to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, rapping like hell, make it sound like heaven. 765, 4321. Come on, so-and-so, come and get some. And L Cool J had a song called 4321.
Yeah.
And he got his chorus from that. But this tape was from 1978. So it was just like, I opened a textbook of knowledge. So
It's like a Rosetta Stone.
right. So I stopped buying rap records at that point. I was like, give me more tapes. Bring me more tapes. And for the next 3 years, I was not even clued in to what was going on in like on Rap City, like after '96. I was just going out collecting breaks and getting these tapes. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, so they're cutting back and forth this break. I have that break. So then I started to design my shows. It's like at the beginning of my Cafe Olé shows, we need at least half an hour where we're doing exactly what's on those tapes. I know that's not you guys' era, but if you want to be on my stage, you're going to be open to this. So we started doing that where I would cut up breaks. And when we get MCs on stage, they had to rhyme whatever break
Yeah.
I was playing. And it just made it so much more interesting because I was able to drop the beat, let them rhyme, cut them back in, and it was like I was their drummer. I got to bring in a drum roll, you know,
True,
like
true, yeah,
it was, and
yeah.
it just made us more visually interesting than a guy walking back on stage playing a DAT tape. So those tapes were really influential
True.
on just kind of molded and shaped how I wanted us to be above everybody else in terms of having the upper edge on knowledge on what we could do with our stage show,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And at that point, we were the people I was rolling with in Halifax. We were the best crew in Halifax because we had
Shout
the
out this
direct-
crew. Who is this crew?
It was Howltown Projects.
Name them. Who's
It was everybody from Nathan C., Papa Grand, Classified was in there, a Flexman was in there, Universal Soul was in there, Shingai was in there, Buck 65, Hip Club Groove. We were all just one big
super group?
super group. Of course, that everybody went their separate ways after that, but in order to start a scene, we needed a super group because we were at the mercy of, Sloan, can you help us? Yeah, but you're not our scene. Come on, Cinnamon Toast Records, can you help us? Yeah, but we're into grunge. And it got to the point, it's like, well, we can't depend on people that don't do what we do.
You needed a critical mass.
We needed critical mass. And speaking of critical mass, DJ Critical
Yeah.
was our radio man
Yeah.
to promote our shows.
Right.
So he played a position where
Got you.
he was a rapper, but first what he was doing was promoting all of the Howltown groups on his radio
Mm-hmm. Right.
show because he met us when we opened for Run DMC.
Right.
And interviewed us about what was it like to open for Run DMC. And then I became his friend at that show because he kind of knew some stuff. And I knew some stuff. I had a sampler. He didn't have a sampler. He knew about Apache break. I didn't know about the Apache break.
Right.
So it was like puzzle pieces. he could fill in some stuff for me. I could fill in some stuff for him. So we used to go to flea markets and record hunt and stuff. And then came to the idea of there's so many labels in Halifax. They all hate rap. So unless we all pull our resources, nothing's going to happen for us. So that's when we all kind of pulled together. We had an audition at CKDU.
Yeah.
We said on the radio. We're putting out a compilation. One of the dudes from one of the grunge labels, Cinnamon Toast, when we came to them about putting out a 45 with them, there were 5 people on that ran that label. They all threw in $200 together to put out a record, and then next time it'd be like $200 more each person, So it was like 5 people all pitching in to put out grunge records, and I liked that idea. So we went to them, and there was one guy on that label. His name is Rob Jeans. He was a DJ. He was like, I really like what you guys are doing. Let's do a few shows. And then he saw that we actually had a show together.
Right.
So he went to that label and said, listen, these guys are really talented, blah, 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 blah. I think we should put out a record with these guys. And nobody else that was running the label was interested.
Right.
So he said, well, he came back to us and he's like, well, since I know you guys are serious, I'm going to do a thing off of that label. This is not going to be related to Cinnamon Toast, but I believe in you guys. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to buy the equipment to manufacture your stuff, and you have to find the groups. So I said I already had a studio at that point, so I just need to find 10 groups that would agree to being recorded to be in a compilation. I mean, like, who would not want that opportunity? That was the opportunity I wanted 10
Great
years
opportunity,
ago.
yeah.
Right. So I'm like, well, now's the time. Let's do this. So we went on Rich's show. Said, yeah, next week we're going to be at CKDU
Have
at Dalhousie.
auditions.
Say what?
Have auditions.
Yes, have auditions and come in, just roll in, and we want to hear. You're going to be. This is kind of like Canadian Idol,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But no cameras or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
And also, like, for a good purpose.
for good purpose, right? But it was
Not
almost
for stupid.
no.
TV.
But it was me, Rich, and Shingai in a room, and we were like, okay, let's see what you got, and we play a tape in the control room.
Yeah.
And they would rhyme right on the spot. Let's see what you got. Put your ego aside and let's see what you got.
Was this broadcast live?
No.
No, I was just wondering.
No. Rich was doing the show in the other room.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would have people come in to
Yeah.
the waiting room.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, they're here for the audition.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, come on in. And Nathan C. and Papa Graham was the first to show up. I said, do your thing. And they did. And I loved what they were doing. They reminded me of remember I was talking about the Spider-Man rhyme? It was like there was some humor in it, there was some street in it, but not too heavy.
Right.
But they had a sense of humor.
Street dudes having fun.
Right. So Nathan and Papa Grand were doing a routine or something where they were parroting TV commercials like Hostess potato chips,
really?
nothing else will do. And the other one was I like 2 scoops of raisin in my raisin bran and da-da-da. And I was like, you know what? I like that you guys pull out of pop culture and make it hip hop.
Right.
You're in. So, and there might have been 1 or 2 guys that came in that were like straight up gangster and, suck my bitches, hoes. And I'm like, nah. But there wasn't many of them, but there were a few that came in there and they wanted opportunity. And Rob Jeans is putting this out. That's not his style. So I'm like, I can record a demo with you guys, but I can't put it on the compilation.
Yeah.
So I record stuff, and it was very cringeworthy. Like, I'm sure those guys, where they are, they probably have a daughter now or something, and they're just like, oh, thank God he didn't put that out. Like, I kind of knew when people said stuff on a mic, if they were going to regret it 20 years later.
Classified's on in an interview that I saw recently talking about him bringing records to your place and being like, check this out, like you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And that some of the content on them, you're like, do you do this? I think it was one of the quotes I saw recently. Like, you were sort of like, do you do this shit in your life? Like, what the fuck are you?
Right.
Why are you talking about this, or why are you even rapping about that? Like, and he credits you with sort of bringing reality in a way into his reality into his rhymes.
But I was very subtle. Like, I didn't want to control what people said.
No.
I kind of know, like, I would
That's
say
too far.
something, like, because it's almost like if you're recording with me, I'm co-signing you. So if you say some really
You feel that
out
way?
there
100%.
stuff,
100%.
like if somebody would like what there was some of those rap battles, and there was like guys like rapping out swastikas and stuff. Like,
I
if
did
that
check
ever-
a guy recently on some of that stuff.
right? But I mean, like,
Yeah.
if I recorded somebody and they're auditioning and that came up, anything that I thought was too heavy,
Right.
it's like you do you, but you can't do you in my studio.
Right.
So all the power to you, whatever you want to believe. I'm not here to cut you down on your belief, because 20 years from now you're gonna be like, damn, I was so stupid, whatever. So I already knew, like, your youth, you do stupid shit,
Sure.
you know. So I'll be like, I can't, this is not gonna fit on the compilation.
Right.
So when the first compilation came out, it was a lot of like-minded people, and it was that same vibe I heard when that Spider-Man rhyme,
Right.
and that was kind of the middle starting point. If you're as close to that as possible, but updated, you got a really good chance.
Right.
And when that compilation come out, everybody that didn't want nothing to do with us, in locally in Halifax or other music or whatever, they wanted a piece of us.
Yeah.
You know, which was kind of good. I was a little pissed off at first, but it's like, well, damn, if that's what it takes to get your attention, that we're not threatening people. Like, well, you know, we can open for you guys. Like, we'll jam with you guys on stage. Just give us a chance. right?
Exactly.
But it wasn't until they saw that we were independent that they respected us.
And once again, ties into that idea of doing it yourself, and then kind of creating the respect by, building it, like respecting yourself enough to become what you need to be.
Yeah.
But we started talking about Howtown via you being the best crew at the time with the best stage performance, all this, because of something that was sort of mimicking the tapes we were talking about.
Right.
And so I just wanted to bring back, like, what is it that you're doing now with those tapes? Because I believe you have a new project, or a project you've been working on, of sort of restoring them or improving quality or something?
Well, I did a hiss removal on some of the tapes because they're really old.
Right.
And I beat mixed the same breaks over the tape and then raised the bass. So off of the record,
Right.
because the record's at the full quality of a record.
Yeah.
And if you beat mix the break over the tape at the same speed to the point where they phase, it's gonna bring out the quality in its full.
Right.
So I did that throughout the whole tape, bar by bar,
Whoa.
throughout every break that I did. So I was able to EQ the tape behind them without having to do a hell of a lot except raise the mids so you can hear the MC.
Holy shit.
And then do some compression and limiting. So it's almost like you're at the party. And of course I incorporated other little things in between. Like I would grab some of the old radio tapes, World Famous Supreme Team. So it's almost like you're going from one end of the town. Meanwhile, in this part of town,
Right.
and you're listening to the World Famous Supreme Team show. Meanwhile, in this side of town, Cold Crush Brothers show. Meanwhile, in this side of town, in Brooklyn, and then it'd be like the Mastodon Committee show. But it was almost like it was all beat mix, but it was just really good splice editing. Like I did all the clips separately, so all the beats are kind of like matched up with the tape, and then I have like 30 clips, and then I kind of, okay, this clip is 80 beats per minute. Next one has to be close, and then it kind of slowly builds to like 127 beats per minute. And then I just arrange them in the order, so it's not like you're going to a fast song then to a slow song.
Right.
Like I just kind of put them in the order, so it's almost like a beat mix tape.
Damn.
But it's all tapes that came out between 78 and 83.
When it comes to all the work that you've done recreating samples and some of the stuff you're talking about here, but that whole project of like recreating samples or recreating beats and things that nobody has had originally, they were sort of made once, you've gone back and like rebuilt them from scratch. I find that amazing. It kind of blows my mind in a lot of ways, but I've always thought about something about this. I've always wanted to ask you this. Like the first time you did that, or the early times you did that, how did you know where to begin? Like you hear something, you say, I want to make that. Like, and I don't know what you isolate first in your mind to try to start building it, or like to me, I figure it's something you'd want to get and go find like, where did they get that? And then start building. I don't want to like get, behind the curtain, but how did you know, other than like looking it up or someone telling you, like what was that drum they were using? or something like that. Like
I had a lot of records.
it was just listening and accumulating like a memory.
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that I was remaking became common knowledge, anyways.
Right.
So
you could go to it that way.
yeah, and there was websites online where you kind of like look up an artist and you tell you what sample. But I didn't really rely on that because the stuff I was remaking was at a time when hip hop, around 91, you had to list in your credits what you sampled
Right.
because of the lawsuits that happened with De La, right?
Right.
When 3 Feet High and Rising came out, there was no list of what was sampled, and that's how it got them sued. So by the time De La Soul Is Dead came out, you read the credits and it was like Saturdays contains a sample of Chicago, Saturday in the Park, and you're like, really?
And
you
you
would-
said like courtesy of this record label.
Right, and the publishing and is used by permission. So
Gotcha.
me and Rich were kind of the first two people in Halifax to pick up on that. And as soon as the album came out where it listed all the samples or whatever, we made a race to Taz to go pick them up, you know.
Right.
And we would listen to them and then figure out how things were done. And in the process, we may find another sample that was used by somebody else that grabbed a later part of the song. Like, it just opened the doors for everything. And it kind of goes back to the Run DMC show that I did. Opened for Run DMC. I got to meet Jam Master Jay. I opened for him, and I was playing a break on stage he didn't know about, and it was Sgt. Pepper's Repris by the Beatles. So after I get off the stage, and I'm going to Bonshaw, I'm like, yeah, great job, you know, that was great or whatever. And then Jam Master Jay makes a beeline right to me. He was like, what the hell was that? I take him to the side and I said, I don't want you guys to hear this or whatever. So I said, if you tell me what you used for Peter Piper, I'll tell you what I used the Beatles. And he was like, Peter Piper, yeah. Bob James 2. And it was a name that I knew I was going to forget in 10 minutes, so I scraped it into the wall, right? Bob James 2. And I went to the record store the next day. It was across the Commons. There was a record store above a laundromat. And I picked up what was in the Bob James section, but Bob James 2 wasn't there. But Bob James 1 was there. And kind of across from the section was also a record by Average White Band, Cut the Cake. So I picked those up the same day. And I threw Cut the Cake on, and I heard Rakim, Microphone Fiend. I'm like, oh my God, that's where he got it from. I played Bob James 1, I heard Nautilus. And it was at a time where Run DMC sampled Nautilus for Beats of the Rhymes. But every other bar was sampleable.
Right.
So the longer I held that record, every month a new artist came that sampled a piece of it. And I'm like, Tropical Quest used the beginning of Nautilus. You know, for clap your hands now, clap your hands now, and then Pete Rock and CL Smooth used it. So I get the record, planning to use this part, and then somebody else just used it. I'm like, damn.
Wow.
So a lot of the records I already had, but I just hadn't got around to sampling them. Then other people would sample them and going, I had that. I was going to use that.
It seems like a good hunter almost to me, like using the whole animal. Where you're like, man, they got that piece there. And
right.
Some people got like the bigger, chunkier, juicy stuff that's like obviously tasty.
Right.
But then there's the pieces that, like, if you do the right things,
right,
they're good.
But the thing that really opened it up was I said, what else is on the CTI label? So
so you dig on a label angle as well, like you'd find an artist and then
we would say who the drummer was for
Right.
that song, Ralph McDaniels. Let's go pick up some Ralph McDaniels songs. Who played bass? Ron Carter. Let's pick up all the Ron bass.
Ron Carter bass.
Ron Carter's bass stuff. And we just bought every CTI record that came out, and it was just like we had enough sample material for 20 years. Wow. And slowly and surely, everybody that was sampling CTI at that time. Right. So when a new record came out, we already knew what it was because we just bought the record 2 months ago. So it's just like everybody, the rest of the world was catching on to the CTI catalog when we already were buying CTI. So we were caught up with New York at that time. And this is 1993.
Wow.
So going back to the sampling and remaking the beats,
yeah,
we already knew what a lot of that stuff was because what was listed in the rap credits
right.
and us what we already had in our collection. So we were kind of aligned with what was going on in New York at that time. Not so much with the bigger pop stuff like Biggie was sampling, Matum, which was a very big hit. You don't have to really dig that deep in the crate. But Primo would sample like Jean-Jacques Perry. What's the chance you would have Jean-Jacques Perry in your collection, for Just to Get a Rep, the beat for Just to Get a Rep? We already had that because we wouldn't leave no stone unturned. So when I was remaking those beats, I just had to go back in my brain. It's like, what was that again? What was that beat again? Oh, that was on CTI. Let me go look. There it is. So a lot of it I didn't have to dig back, but I had some help from some of the artists themselves. Like I was in contact with Plug One, and he told me some of the stuff that I missed, that I didn't know, the background stuff.
Right.
And he would let me know what they were. And he said, just as long as you don't tell nobody, because that was not a cleared sample, don't worry about it. And then I would add it to the new version. So if I remade a beat and I left pieces out, sometimes when I found out what the pieces were later, I'll just revisit that edit, add that piece back in. So it was almost like an unfinished work. Some of them were unfinished works, right?
What was the first time that somebody, like you'd built one of these and someone thought it didn't exist, and you'd made it? And that interaction of like, what the... Because it must have been kind of crazy the first time someone, where it was their song, where they're like, this doesn't exist, this shouldn't be happening.
Well, I started making these around the time. I made them when I first had my first sampler, but I didn't keep it. I just did it like almost like, how did they make
Practice.
Well, not even practice, but what mindset were they in when they made this record? Let me just rebuild it, and I'm just like trying to imagine.
Your motto, I think, is like, how did they do that? And then it's go.
Right. And the first one I made was
Everyone.
the first one I made was Ego Trippin' by Ultramagnetic.
Okay.
When I first had this Substitution 45.
Right.
It's like, so that's how they were doing it. That bass line is something they played on a keyboard. That's not on this record. Okay. So then I'll play, and I'll do that. But then I never kept those sessions. I started to revisit that when Serato, before it was called Serato, what was it called?
Final Scratch.
Final Scratch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final
And the one that always kept crashing, right?
Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Okay, because I know you had it early.
Yeah, I had it early.
And so when they started coming in, I saw the possibility, and I went from mini disc recorder to Final Scratch.
I still got my mini disc.
Yeah, so I have my mini disc recorder because anytime a new song that was out was going to be on wax and I didn't have it yet, I would just rip it right off the internet and play it on a mini disc.
Right.
And sometimes I play my own creations and I would just kind of blend it in because mini disc was really good quality. So I had some of those beat remakes on my mini disc, and I would play them knowing that around the corner the Serato thing was going to come, where we can actually play our own creations now. So I'm just like, okay, let me go back in the catalog. Let's see, my favorite records. LL Cool J, when he did live shows, he rhymed over his lyrics. Why? Because he didn't release his instrumentals.
He didn't have them.
He
That's
didn't have
crazy.
them. He does now. He has his acapellas now because, the age of Serato has got to the point where people went back to the reel-to-reels and extracted them.
Right.
But at that point when Serato was just around the corner coming out, Rock the Bells, there was no instrumental.
Right.
And I'm thinking, how ridiculous would it be if I had Rock the Bells? It's like, bet you ain't got this. I'm not sure I don't the age difference of how important Rock the Bells was to you guys. But when Rock the Bells came out, when the age I was, it took over everything. It was the baddest joint ever until Peter Piper came out. So there was an instrumental for Peter Piper. There was. But there was no instrumental for Rock the Bells.
Right.
There was no instrumental for Jack the Ripper. Everybody wanted and it was almost like on a karaoke note that people wanted it. Because remember when rap karaoke was starting to take off?
Yeah.
And they're like, wouldn't it be really cool if we could do like Jack the Ripper, but there's no instrumental for it. So the first people that saw that I was doing and were just like, dude, I gotta get that, was the rap karaoke guys. So I didn't think it would go beyond rap karaoke.
Really?
So the first ones people were asking for was Rock the Bells. I want to do Rock the Bells. And next thing you know, everybody that had access to my Rock the Bells, everybody was doing it at karaoke, but even got to the point where there was a dude. What's the guy's name? He was in UMC's, and he later became a political rapper. His name is NY Oil. Remember he had that song "Y'all Should Get Lynched"? You don't remember that?
No,
Okay.
I don't remember that one.
Okay, so
I'm gonna look that up.
yeah, he was in a group called the UMCs that had Blue Cheese or whatever, and he didn't like how he was represented, so he kind of went under. He did the MF Doom thing.
Okay.
Oh,
Where
okay.
MF Doom, before that, he did the song Gas Face,
Yeah.
and he was under a different name, and he showed his face.
Yeah.
But then he disappeared when Black Bastards album came out, and he put a mask on. He reinvented himself. For years, people couldn't figure out that it was that dude. So NY Oil did the same thing around the same time. So when LL Cool J had that song Accidental Racist,
Yeah.
remember he did it with
Yeah,
that country
yeah,
artist?
yeah.
NY Oil took my instrumental for Rock the Bells and dissed LL off of that Accidental Racist and called it What the Hell. And he did the whole diss routine and recorded it and released it. He didn't know where it originated. It was passed to person to person to person. He got it. And next thing you know, I'm hearing my instrumental and LL diss over it. And I'm going, whoa. And the same thing happened to the symphony. I remade the
That
symphony.
must be crazy too, because like that song means so much to you, is so positive, and like you know you love that song, and then to hear
Right.
the diss of the guy over it, like
Well, yeah, but but at the same time, I'm just like, wow, like of all the people that could have used this, it was him. You know, like he was pretty big, right? Then the symphony, I did the Molly Mall the Symphony because there's no instrumental for that.
wow.
And nobody could really remake it because the record, the break record on there, was super rare. It's like a $500 record. And I ended up finding that record. So I wanted that record for the purpose of remaking the symphony. So when I remade the symphony, everybody started dropping posse cuts called the Symphony Part 6, the Symphony Part 8, the Symphony Part 12, and they're using my instrumental. Some people asked me for permission, others just did it. So I was just kind of like, wow, there was some kind of demand here, you know? People are like, oh, holy shit, like there's an instrumental for this or whatever. So I started making more. But I would actually do my homework and find out if instrumental existed. So I was like, what's a really dope song that everybody was like dying to break down, but they don't know every single piece? And I said, let's go through Public Enemy. Night of the Living Bassheads. There's like 60 samples on that song. And I knew every single one of them, so I remade it, put it out there. People are emailing me going, what did you, what 12-inch do you got that got? I'm like, it's a remake.
What kind of witch doctor are you?
Yeah, well, like, what kind of sicko are you type of thing, right? And I just started doing more and more. And then eventually, Questlove found out.
Right.
He found out on his own. But he kept quiet. He was quietly watching me. And Jazzy Jeff also was aware.
Right.
So one day, out of nowhere, no event leading up to it, I get a message from people saying, look at Twitter. And even to this day, I'm not really on a lot of social media. It's very sporadic. I'm not on there every day. So people are like, you know, check out Twitter. So what's going on? And they're like, Questlove is shouting you out. I'm like, what? So he said something about one of the remixes I made. I can't remember the exact. He said that I'm the king of remaking beats or something like that, and it was him. And I was like, how the hell did you find me? He's like, dude, I've been watching you for a minute. So I was just like, okay. You know, and then he starts private messaging me, and he was just like, can you do this? Can you do that? And he was like, can you remake something of the Beatnuts that doesn't have an instrumental? I'm going to play tonight. I'm going to play it for Juju. I'm like, okay, what is it? And he was like, can you remake Fried Chicken? So in half an hour, because I knew.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he said tonight. That was a
Yeah.
word in there. I'm like, wait a second, what? Tonight?
But I used
What
to
the
do
fuck?
this.
Tonight?
I used to do this when I was still doing shows, and I was on tour. I was on tour with Ghetto Sox, and there was times where we'd go from city to city, and it was like, we need to have a new instrumental. Is there an instrumental for this or that? And I'll be like, we got 4 hours. Give me half an hour. I'll have it done. And I would just pull out the laptop and I would do it. And
That's fucking crazy,
so,
man.
but that was just me knowing my shit, right? That's an age thing, and being a fan for that long. I know.
And a memory, like.
Well, yeah, and a memory too. But so I was doing that type of stuff, and when Questlove said, "Can you make fried chicken over for me?" So in half an hour, I sent it to him, and then he puts on his tweet and he says, he came through like the Michelin chef, or he said something like that, like 5-star Michelin chef. JoRun or whatever, the 5-star Michelin chef, just came through like, whoa. And I was laughing. I thought it was funny. And then he messages me the next day. He was like, I played it. Juju was in the crowd. And he said, I bet you ain't got this. And he plays it for him. And Juju's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Wait, what?
Where's the lyrics? How did you get this? You know? And it just became a thing where everybody wanted something. And this is kind of like not just the instrumentals. DJs want stuff that nobody has.
That's what I find fascinating.
Possibilities, you know what I mean? Like just being able to give the crowd something that nobody ever heard before.
What I find fascinating is the timing of Serato and your decision. Like you seeing Serato coming, because Serato, takes DJing and moves it somewhere.
Right.
Not, and does it. But at that moment, you do something that I think is just ultimately at the root of the original, like the DJ. You don't have this. My party's better than your party. Come to my side of the park. I got the good records. And so you literally went like, you took it back to the beginning in a current way at that time, and even now, and are like, let me bring it back to that. You don't got this. And I even a line of yours I heard was like, you want to hear this again? Pay cover at my next show or whatever. Which also draws, it creates an audience. It creates a draw, a reason to go to this person's show.
People underestimate the power of novelty. And I don't mean novelty in a corny way, but I mean novelty like when Cool Herc was playing at the parties, he would not let you know what he was playing. Sometimes Grand Wizard Theater would play records, and people were just like, what the hell is that?
Doesn't he play your stuff now? Like, doesn't he
try
your stuff out or something?
He tests my stuff out before everybody else. So
how does that feel? That must be amazing for you, man. It's like Grand Wizard Theater.
It's just like Chuck Berry being the first to check out your notes.
So I'm not buttering too thick, man.
No. But I'm like,
I'm not buttering too thick.
But at the same time, I'm using that formula of like what made hip hop.
That's right.
People like, even when I first started DJing out in public, I would soak my records, the labels off my records, because I didn't want nobody in the rap in the DJ competitions to start buying what I was buying. It was heavy competition.
Right.
People would try to steal your records if they didn't know what it was. The other option was, when your back is turned, take it out your bag. And that was a reality of being a DJ. And I think with Serato, the danger was anybody can know what you played and download it for free in half an hour, have your whole set, and come to your party with flyers saying, fuck this guy, come to my party. I'll play everything he plays. I knew that was around the corner. What's the logical thing to do? Have a collection of stuff nobody has. That means you can't download it anywhere.
Well, also, you're a guy that every time, as we talked about earlier, every time you run into something that you can't do, you figure out how to do it. So if you're not you, the only thing you can do to keep people from becoming you is have exclusive stuff nobody can have.
And the more you have...
And they have to have your talent and other things, too. Don't
Right.
get me wrong. But, by exclusive... even that beat you were talking about earlier, the $500 record. Until you got that, it just couldn't be done. It couldn't be worked around.
Right.
Or learned.
And there was times where I played that record, but you could only play so much of the record. And it would go over the crowd's head. It was more of a DJ's DJ record. You got that, but the crowd, they want to dance.
Right.
So to make them dance, I recreate the beat that they danced to that was off of that. So I was meeting both parties both ways.
Nice.
It's like, how can I please the DJ's DJ and make the crowd dance? They're going to dance to the symphony. and nobody else has the symphony instrumental, so I'm going to surprise both crowds. So there was a lot of thinking going on me saying, okay. And the other thing that goes back kind of to what I'm doing lately, my edits.
Yeah, I find those fascinating.
But recently, like in the last month and a half, I don't know how soon you joined my Instagram.
A while ago now.
Okay. So you've noticed the element removal.
Yeah, I was trying to
Yeah, talk to us about this, man.
Isolation was what I was
Right.
calling it, but
Yes.
so I find this fascinating because it's like another, well, you'd say it. It's a whole other thing. It's like a whole other layer.
There's only one other guy that does what I do.
So what are you doing? Like, for people that don't know what we're talking about.
I can't go into too much detail about that because
Behind the curtain.
And the reason why I can't go into detail about that, as soon as a magician gives away his tricks, he's in the unemployment line the next day.
Word.
Right? So
No.
it's a combination of recording methods. If you go back to the 60s, when they had very little to work with, they had to find ways around solving problems, and there was a lot of phase problems with recording with 5 mics around a drum set.
Right.
And stuff will cancel each other out, and that wasn't the main thing, but that was one of 10 things to learn. When you combine with all these little things that they do, and you make this big math equation, you could eventually figure out how to do this stuff. It's not a program. People think it's a program you press one button and then it removes it's
No
nothing.
way.
Nothing like that exists.
If you've done even like the most basic, and I put myself in this group, the most basic of audio editing,
right.
that program doesn't exist. It doesn't
exist.
It'd be
Maybe
crazy.
some way. Maybe someday it will.
Well, it does, but it's like human and carbon and stuff.
Right.
It's
But
over
but so I figured out a way to incorporate methods that crossed each other, that I could isolate a frequency. Not the entire band of the whole song, but just for the length of time a certain instrument is played.
Got you.
So it EQs for the time a guitar goes dang it. It's almost like taking the knob, but it's a method. Right?
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah.
So, but it doesn't affect anything else in the song. And there's only one other dude that does that. His name is K-Def. I'm pretty sure his method is different from mine, but our results are the same. So I don't know how he's doing what he does. He doesn't know.
He has a machine.
But, and I've been meaning to talk to him on the phone because we've been trying to arrange to talk on the phone. And I think the conversation is going to be something like this. And if K-Def is watching, please don't give out the formula. Dude, I'm on the same page with you. I know as soon as the formula's out there, there's going to be a lot of other people like us.
A lot of fakers, though.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that, because I've got a lot of emails, people saying, teach me how to do that. I want to make money too. They're right. They're not even hiding it.
So talk to me about when you said make the money, but also like who's really psyched for those? Like wants to buy them, wants to hear
other DJs.
Yeah,
you know
I
why?
imagine they're really DJ.
You know why
centric.
though? It goes back to having something nobody else has.
Right.
So Biz always hits me up when I put out one of those. Kid Capri always hits me up, and they play the edits. Like the big one everybody was asking me about is Heat Wave Ain't No Half Steppin'.
Yeah.
Because the break, the Grandmaster Flash used to cut up the break, but the drums is not by itself. It's ain't no half steppin', ain't no half. And there's one guy that has the reel-to-reel and can remove that, but he's not doing nothing with it. So I said, well, I think I know how to get rid of the vocals. So I got rid of the vocals. And when I showed people, people were hitting me up. I mean, like, big name people first.
Yeah.
And,
I see it, man. Like,
and
I comment on your Instagram, and it's like hip hop royalty all around me. Going, I like it, Joe. Like it's.
But Biz was like, I need that, homie. I need that. Grandmaster Theodore, I gave it to him. He started playing it. I did it with Bob James Nautilus. So when the break breaks down and the keyboard comes in, I drop everything. It's just the keyboard.
Yeah.
And people were like, holy, like, you must have the reel-to-reels for this. There's no method. Like, there's no way other than you having the reels. So people were messaging me going, "I'll pay you $1,000 for the multi-tracks." Like, dude, if you know Pub James, he's the only one with the reel-to-reels, and he made it very clear. He did not digitize them, and they're still in his house. He did the baking method, so you can only play the reel-to-reel once, and it would turn into flakes. You know, because it's over 30 years old. I don't know if you know about that method.
I do.
So
I conserve art for a living.
So even if I played it for Bob James, it'd be so convincing that he'd be like, "Did you break in my house and take those real?" Like it was so real. Like, and I was kind of amazing myself, thinking, this is turning out way better than I thought. You know. So Lord Finesse started hitting me up. He was like, "Dude, I need those edits." So. You know, Jeff is just like, wow, going on my page out in the open, going, "Wow, you're my idol," saying stuff like that.
And Jeff is DJ Jazzy Jeff.
So
you spent some time with him at his the beat.
I did. And we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But it goes back to I'm able to take a song that everybody has. I can look and everybody has this song in their Serato crate, but now I have a version that the beginning is different.
Yeah.
The singer's not there at the acapella at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just the drums. And sometimes something small like that is enough that the other DJs will be like,
"Oh yeah,
wait a minute."
It's all about presentation. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, DJs go to clubs and be like, "Oh, I can't listen to other whack DJs or whatever." But like, if you got a DJ that's playing edits like that you ain't never heard before, like.
And sometimes the beat is so dope, but there's no open part.
Yeah.
So now you can make an open part.
Yeah.
The drum is so dope, but that synth is so loud. I'll take out the synth. Now that's an option, right? So now I've put out 2 of them already as a 45, which I only sell on my Instagram, and they're $200 each. And people had no problem paying $200 each. So when I sold about 20 of them at $200 each, and I said, okay, got to make 20 more. So now I see how hot the item is, where these guys have no problem. They want it that badly. So when you see somebody that's willing to pay that much, it's not so much about the money, but to them to say money is not an object.
Yeah.
I need it that bad. I'll give you my grocery money for that. And then you kind of scratch your head and like, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. They want it that bad. So then I started more focusing on the instrument removal stuff.
Do you keep some of those retirement policy pieces where you're like, people will want this, but I'll wait to put out the 100 of this I'm going to put out when, I want a chunk of change? Or also my other question was, would you limit how many you'd sell due to the idea that exclusivity matters and you don't want to be a Serato but in a LP form?
I think I try to make the buyers happy. If they're going to pay that much for the record, they're paying that much for the record because they want to be one of the few in the world.
That's what I figured.
To have it. I started noticing my records that I press 300 to 500 of, they're like $100 records now. Everything that has my name on it now, including the Universal Soul CD, is $75 on Discogs. So when I started seeing that pattern in the last 6 years, that everything that had my name on it, there were collectors that wanted everything that I put out. I kept it in the back of my mind, the demand is there. Right. How am I going to utilize that? And then when I was able to cut my own records, Jeff had a record cutter in his garage the last time I was out there, and I was able to cut whatever I want. Just take a wave off here, and we were able to cut it for free. Wow. So when I saw the lineup of people at the Playlist Retreat waiting to have their records cut of their private stuff, I really started to see all the DJs, because it's all DJs there, producers and DJs at Jeff's.
Explain what this is for people that don't know. We jumped to Jeff's, but what is this that you went to DJ Jazzy Jeff's house or retreat? Explain what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
It started in 2015, I believe. I got an invite to go out there through help of, not that I asked, but Paul, Scratch Bastard.
Yeah, shout out.
Referred me to Jeff, because Jeff was getting a lot of my edits and he was playing them regularly.
Right.
So, and he was playing a lot of other people's stuff regularly, but we were all known only in our hometowns.
Right.
So everybody from me to Stro Elliott to some of the other DJs that were in what was the DJ Shortcut, J Period, Z Trip, LL Cool J's DJ, that they all had their own worlds,
Right.
you know, and there had to been a way to combine us all to brainstorm together and see each other regularly. So he had planned this out. He had sponsorship things come in where part of the cost would be covered by sponsors because Jeff has a lot of pull.
Yeah.
I mean, the mixer companies, Serato, all these people would pay for like the flights and everything. So he gave me the invitation. It was in like December or January, and I had to keep quiet until August.
Oh man.
It was killer. It was killing me. I couldn't say anything.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I couldn't tell nobody.
Anyone?
I couldn't tell nobody. But and what made it kind of easy was
Wouldn't even say it in the mirror to himself.
no, because I was in disbelief.
I would be too.
So I didn't think this was going to happen. I thought it was just shop talk. So when he told me, like, I want you over to my house, whatever, it was exciting for a second. But until I'm going to get the plane tickets,
Yeah.
I'm not going to believe it. This is too good to be true. So it wasn't until I got the plane tickets and the time to go there and I needed a passport, it started to sink in a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, this is really going to happen. And I got the plane tickets; they're already paid for. We want you here on on my birthday, but they didn't know it was my birthday. So
That's dope.
I'm just like, this is the best. Every year I'm there on my birthday, and nobody there knows it's my birthday because to me, it's not about me, right?
They might know after this.
No, but the thing is, at
We're
that
gonna make
time,
sure we tag Jeff right
Right.
at that part.
but the thing is, I don't want it to be about me.
No.
You know, it's the best birthday present you can ever
I
get.
imagine.
So I'm not even thinking about my birthday. To be perfectly
Could it
honest,
be? Could it be even a better birthday? Really, like what you're
But
saying?
internally, you're
It's
like,
amazing.
this is the best birthday.
This is the
ever.
best
Right.
birthday ever. Every
Yeah,
year.
But it's almost not even a requirement to even like. I turn off my notification on Facebook to say it's my birthday. It's because like I'm going to Jeff's. The hell with my birthday. I can celebrate that when I get home. So I didn't want it to be about me, you know.
Right, right.
So I waited and waited and waited. I get the flight to go there, and this is the first time I'm in the United States since 1980. I haven't been in the United States in that long.
Wow.
So it'd be the official first time in the United States. And I was only like crossing Boston when I was a kid. You know, we weren't even allowed there. Like we had to turn back and go there. So I'm officially going to be in the States. And Obama's the president. You know, I'm just like, wow, what a time to be alive. So I get the flight.
Yes,
I
Joe
land there.
can.
And I still don't know there's all these other people going to be there.
You think it's just you and Jeff?
It was super secret.
Oh, so everybody thought they were I like it. I like it. It's like Ocean's
Nobody-
11, but Ocean
Only-
Jazzy Jeff.
Right. So only the day we're going out there, I get a password for a website that's not showing up on the internet, and that I had to type in some kind of IP address in
Yeah.
the HTTP to
That's the
go
dark
to
web.
see who's going to be there.
Dark web.
Right? Not the dark web. It's just a direct.
Probably, though.
It's the direct IP address, so it's not out in the public, but
Yeah.
you're going right to the computer.
It's
there.
not searchable.
Yeah, it's not searchable. So I started to see baby pictures, but nobody's name next to them.
That's amazing.
And my baby picture was up there too, because they asked me to submit my first picture of when I was a DJ, when I was 14 years old, in my room with my turntables. So there was no name next to mine. So we're all looking at everybody's kid pictures. The only one I recognize is Jeff. I don't know who the other people are. They're all like, you know, either baby pictures or teenagers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is so weird. This is really weird. So we get to the party. We get to the front door, and I have to sign a contract. And his wife is there, and some of the Playlist Retreat crew, whatever. And as I'm going in, I'm starting to recognize faces. And some of the people come to me before I go to them, which was mind-blowing. Like DJ Scratch from EPMD came to me. He already knew who I was. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm supposed to know who you are. You're not supposed to know who I am. You know, that type of thing.
Wow.
So, and then I saw Z Trip there, and the digging in the crates in the garage on a sunny day. Paul is already there, and I'm slowly being introduced to everybody, and I'm just like, this is surreal. This is so surreal. They show me where my tent is, and who's sleeping across from me, and I'm just like, oh my God, like Z Trip is gonna be in that tent, and they're like, oh, we're here for 5 days or 4 days or whatever. So the music is like nonstop all night. There's always something going on. He has like acres and acres of land in the back where all the tents are. I mean the RVs. Everybody has RVs.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So and everything is lit up with torches, like going into the darkness of the backyard or whatever,
Nice.
towards the water or whatever. So it's almost like I can't even describe it. It was just. It was so surreal, like going from the back of where his pool area is, then going to the way back, and all you can't see nothing except torches. You hear crickets just screaming, crickets in the night, and then you see blue lights where all the RVs are, and you go into your RV, and you got a comfortable bed. You got on top of your bed a thank you gift for being here. It was like, all these sponsor companies giving you a whole bunch of the newest stuff to try out or whatever. And I'm just like, I never got this treatment ever before in my life. How do I even register this, you know? So at one point, I'm at the pool area making beats with Lord Finesse. And we're up there. It was probably about midnight. So the events haven't started yet. It was just like the first day we're chilling. And we just gather at a table over by the pool. We're there till about 6 in the morning, and it was me. It was Z Trip. I'm trying to remember. It was Young Guru.
Wow.
DJ Cash Money. Shortcut. I believe it was Shortcut. And two of the names escape me. There's a video online. The whole night was us with our hard drives, with multi-tracks, saying, is anybody looking for the a cappella of the... I got it. I got the whole session. I'll trade you with this for that. Okay, handing keys back and forth, telling stories. Young Guru playing me Jay-Z songs that were never released, that were pulled off the Black Album. Z-Trip playing me the a cappella of Rock the Bells. A cappella. And playing me the stems of the leftover cutting room floor stems of Going Back to Cali by LL Cool J. The saxophone, and like the long saxophone take or whatever. And I'm hearing stuff I would never hear anywhere else. It was like a workshop. They had the MPC there that Jazzy Jeff used to make his second album, with the original discs and all the samples still in them, so you could just press play off the disc and it would play the whole beat. No. Everything I ever wanted to know, I could ask right there. I had a conversation with DJ Scratch about what was going on behind the scenes at Def Jam when EPMD was working with LL Cool J. How'd that happen? And he would tell me stories I never hear in Source Magazine or anywhere else. Just stuff, business stuff, Lord Finesse would tell me a whole bunch of stuff that I never knew. I would ask about breaks that I never knew. I'll get my answers. It was just like, it was like a really long dream. Really long dream.
Wow.
And by the time I was on a flight going back, it was just kind of like, what the hell? What happened? Like, what the hell was that? It didn't even register I was there. I was so in the groove of what was going on that I just fitted. Like, nobody had ego or nothing. So you don't really sit down and registering what was going on. You're just kind of like, it's not even real. Like in your dream, if you're having a dream one night and you're hanging out with De La Soul, like you grew up with them. Then you wake up and it wasn't true.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of that. You're hanging out with these guys and you're asking all these questions or whatever.
You wake up
and you wake up on the plane. You're like, that really happened.
And I'm going back.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So and it was the reason why we were picked is because Jeff had all of our edits and stuff on his playlist when he was touring. So it was all the lesser known artists that he believed needed a shot, or at least get known. That's why it's called the playlist.
Retreat. Makes sense.
Right.
That's wild.
So, because he tours like
Yeah.
300 and some days.
He's a
of the-
hard-working
yeah.
DJ.
So
he's out there.
We're supplying him with music that
Keeps him out
keeps
there.
him
yeah,
out
keeps
there.
him
right.
current.
So
fresh.
we're on his playlist.
And he wants to have a retreat with his playlist.
Right. Well, it's almost like a thank you for supplying the music.
It's amazing.
That type of
What
thing.
a
right?
what a nice thing to do. But also talk about building a scene, right? It's the bigger scene. Even it's like
Right.
bringing it together and growing and giving opportunity, even to people that are doing it.
Right. It's on a larger scale where, the industry kind of fell apart, and a lot of these artists have nowhere else to go, and unless somebody leads the way and saying, let's all gather together, power in numbers, we don't need the industry. At one point, during the second one that we had, there was a media blackout because he didn't want the media that wouldn't cover any of us
To cover.
to all of a sudden come there with label people saying that new talent at Jeff's, we're going to snatch him up. He's like, no, you weren't interested in us before. Stay out. This is about us now. We're not here to get signed. We're here to feed off of each other's inspiration. To have all these outsiders here, industry people, will be just to mess the whole thing up again. Y'all stay out. Media blackout.
You bring up something that I brought up with another guest when he said the other guest said something about hopefully I'll be successful and in his pursuit of a sort of a rap career or whatever or something like that. And I stopped him and said, you have been. You've put out this album, and I like this album. And so in my mind, you've been successful at making rap music. Now, not successful necessarily like it pays the bills and all this, but as an art form, as a thing that's separate from where it takes you, separate from your connections. And I think you see it at the highest level who people truly love it. That's like, I'm going to shut the gates. This is about an art form and a craft, and it's separate from your connections or who could be at the gate waiting to whisk you off to whatever. This is about who can do this. And so I think it's good that we remind people that this is something that exists before money and that bullshit gets involved and starts to tell us what is good, what isn't good, what's hot. That has a role, and like we got to eat and things, but it's important to remember this is an art form, and art exists before the market for that art at all times.
Even on a deeper level, everybody that was there was kind of on the same level. Like, nobody was there with a big head.
Right.
And it was kind of the other reason why there was a media blackout. We didn't want people to think they like, how come I wasn't invited? Gotcha. And still have enough time to just show up uninvited. Because that's a reality. That's
true. No,
a
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
reality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying specifically about a Jeff, but I mean, if you have something big going on and you have all the people, everybody's hot, whatever, and it could be just something as simple as playing a game of poker. And let's say some bunch of guys that want to get signed know all these people are there. They're going to crash the party and start handing out their demos, interrupting your poker game. Yeah. Like, dude, this is not for you guys. Yeah. So when the reality started to sit in, it's like, we got something special. A lot of people online started to see the video of the first playlist. People were trying to Google where he lived. And I was not saying anything. But I saw, because we're at his house, that kind of puts him in some kind of position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So out of respect, I kept a lot of things to myself, and I would have done it for anybody else that would have had the thing at their property.
Yeah.
How many people even know where Classified lives? Only the people in, you know what I mean?
He has had some unexpected visitors a few times.
But you see what I'm saying, right? I mean, he's the biggest artist in Halifax, right? Halifax County. Let's say Halifax County, because he's way out there now. Okay. But people were willing to follow me when I was at my studio at the Khyber, driving in from New Brunswick to look for me. People flying in from Newfoundland.
That studio's
looking for me. But that was only because of word of mouth that I worked with this guy, that guy. So I knew the power of when you are the guy, people will go through a snowstorm, whatever, hitchhike in town to look for you. They want that shot. And that's also part of hip-hop. That's how LL Cool J got signed. He showed up to Rick Rubin's. He saw on the record, It's Yours by Tila Rock, had the dormitory address on it, and he showed up uninvited. Brought his demo. He auditioned there. You know, that type of thing. That's part of hip-hop. But the drawback is, at the end of the day, sometimes you just don't want to deal with people. People crawling in your window. Listen to my demo. You don't want that, right?
No.
So there's a sense of privacy you crave, you know, especially as you get older.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, big time.
And
And
I
you
think
have
the
your
thing
own
about
kids and
your own
everything.
home, I mean, the own home thing is huge, right? Like that's where your family is. That's where you live.
I'm also, and you remember this,
That matters more than anything.
my place got broken into because too many people knew where I was.
Right.
And they grabbed up all my shit.
I lost my first demo tape we were working on.
And that was the thing. And I was
Because of
actually
that
out on the
break-in.
street because they took my rent money. I couldn't even put the door back on the hinges. The snow came in. And it was the night before Christmas that happened.
Damn.
So
That's
that was a
cold-hearted
really,
as hell.
really valuable lesson. You can be the man, but if you're too much the man and you're too accessible, somebody's going to wait till they know your schedule and you're not around. They're going to come in, they're going to take everything you got, and it was him. No, everybody's quiet. And so at that point, that's when I started to understand, peel back, have a life outside of this. Nobody needs to show up to your door to record Beats 4 in the morning and wake you up. Because that happened at the Khyber. But we had an alarm system downstairs. But there'd be times where after the bars get out
Right.
at 3:30
I got to
downtown,
record right now, baby. I'm
but
hot
people
right
would
now.
throw rocks at
I'm
my
so
window.
hot right now.
Let's go to Joe's and record some shit.
But that's what happened. People throw rocks at my window for 3:30 in the morning because I was right around the corner from the pizza corner. And it would happen. People would throw rocks at my window. Joe, Tracy used to do that shit.
I can
Shout out to
But I
Tracy.
still do that shit
Him-
now.
He would show up with Trobiz sometimes and be like, yo, Joe, I know you got some beats out there. But I knew Tracy. But there was other people that I didn't really know. But they just knew that I was in the area, so they're throwing rocks at everybody's window. So I'm yelling Joe, and I'm kind of like shutting the lights off, closing the curtains. I'm like, okay, just ignore it. They'll go away. You know, and then and I hear garbage cans being thrown out in the street, 4 in the morning. You know, I know you're up there. So
Yeah,
it
I
gets
really
crazy.
want to work with you.
Right, but
Sorry,
that's
go-
people passionate about wanting to get in.
Yeah. It's a discussion we've had before on here, sort of like the young guys who are brash and like annoying and, too cocky for their own good. And then I'm like, man, it's also the young boy MO. Like, but there should be a respect level there as well. I think there's the right way to be brash and be, cocky and be young and like get in people's faces. And I think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And 4 in the morning throwing rocks, that's never really going to make people happy with you. Who's opening the door and be like, yeah, let's do.
Yeah.
But there are ways to do it in a better way, I think.
But there were some people that were cocky that they knew where the line was drawn. Like the first time I met Hip Club Groove, they were cocky as hell. They're from Truro, like they didn't know anything else other than Truro, and they're in Halifax. So, but I stomached it. Like I was just like, okay. I went to the studio with them because they won a rap contest that was on Gottingen Street, and they were at a recording studio, Center for Art Tapes.
Yeah.
So I went to the recording session with them, and they were young. They were cocky. They're all younger than me by a few years, but they outgrew it, and I knew like there were some of maybe one member was probably too young to be in the bars. So they were at an age where you're going to be cocky. And line this up with one of my favorite groups being the Beastie Boys, when they're at their nastiest
Right.
and they're most immature.
Yeah.
And they outgrew that.
That's true.
So I understood it. There was some kind of funniness to it that I was going to think, we're going to laugh at this later on, that type of thing. So as long as their cockiness wasn't over the edge, putting people in danger and no threats, just kind of like just being goofy and like, falling down the
They
stairs.
still had
type of thing.
respect.
But I
for you.
understand kids are going to be immature. I understand that. Just so long as you don't, there's a line to cross. As long as you don't cross that line, I might put the line really, like, I give people a lot of slack. I understand kids are going to be kids.
Sure.
just don't like want to, like, let's take this outside type of thing. And like, as long as you're not cocky on that level, if you're just kind of, like, I'm the best, and it's like, yeah, okay. I mean,
I kind of want my MCs like that.
yeah,
to be honest.
everybody
I
wants
like
their
my MCs like that.
right.
Cocky.
But there's a level of cockiness that I just accepted from them because they were also excited to finally be recording. So, they would say some silly shit here and there. Like, I'd play beat and Check Love would be like, I think I just jizzed. Oh, like just like funny shit. And I would just laugh. That's such an 18-year-old thing to say. Like, look who I'm talking to, But of course they're not like that now. But I understood. I was 18 at one point in my life.
Right.
And I knew I said a lot of stupid shit because I was just in the moment. And just going, wow, oh my God. Like, first time I was in a record store in Toronto in 1986, and I walked in. It was the first time I actually saw a large cachet of hip-hop records. I was with my sister. I embarrassed my sister because this is me walking into the store. Oh my God, the Run DMC album. Oh my God, Joski. Oh. I was flipping out, but I was young. When I saw something exciting, I didn't hide it. I was freaking out. I saw the Joski Love record. Yeah. I had it on a cheap tape that you couldn't hear the bass, and here it was, the record, still on the charts in front of me. You would never get that. So, and I saw Peter Piper 12-inch. I saw the Rock the Bells, stuff you could never get in Halifax. Titles you guys probably wouldn't know at the time. Rob Bass's first record, DJ Interview, was there, way before It Takes Two. So, and I was familiar with all this stuff, but my copy was on a tape that had no bass. Right. And if you got the record, you got the whole range. So I'm just like, oh my God. And the record store owner's looking at me like, are you gonna explode?
Are you okay?
But then my sister was kind of like, shh, you're embarrassing me. But that was me being a kid, I'm just like, finally, I'm at the next step. I could buy the records. I got $50 spending money. Let me buy them. So, like, I would take them to my aunt's place when we're in Toronto, and we're only out there for a week and a half or whatever, and I'm playing it over and over and over and over, going, oh my God, I can't believe it. Because a lot of the scratching on the record I thought was done on the radio.
Right.
I didn't know it was on the actual record. So it was a push going, oh, I want to be a DJ even more now. And I got the records. So back home in the summer, outside the George Dixon Center, they would have DJs set up, but they're older than I was. They were like probably 20 or 21 years old. I can't remember all their names, but they would set up like 4th of July, just right outside what was called, they probably don't call this anymore. It was where the horseshoes toss thing on Gottingen Street. It's basketball court now, but they used to call it dummy field. I'm pretty sure it was like a derogatory term, but that's what everybody called it. So on this field, they set up the DJs there, and on the other side of the fence, I'll be there, and my back towards Gottingen Street, where it was just before it reaches the bridge, and I would stand out there, watch the DJs play the record at the full quality, and they're playing like Boogie Boys, Fly Girl, Girl Talk, stuff like that. And these were the only guys I knew that had the actual rap records and their full quality. But I didn't know those guys, and they didn't respect me because I'm 15, 16 years old. They're 22, 23 years old, Jamaican dudes playing records for Uniacke Square, the crowd or whatever, while they had the outdoor fair or whatever. And they had a full setup. Like, they had the table set up, turntables, big sound speaker that they rent, and they just play it right in the Uniacke Square. And I would go to some of these places when they were playing, and I would also go to Wheelies.
Shout out
and
to
that
legendary Wheelies.
It was right near Shannon Park, by the second bridge. As you turn off the second bridge, it's a car dealership place now, but it was Wheelies. And I would go there, I would put on my roller skates, and I would not roller skate. I would stand behind the DJ booth, either play the arcade games behind me, or I would stand behind the DJ booth, watch the DJ play records. And he was just playing one record, fading, playing another one. But he had the whole setup. He had a crossfader, he had 1,200 turntables, and
you were move aside.
No, but the thing I was looking at was just kind of like watching what records you would play and how certain records you would play. Like if you play One Way Cutie Pie, everybody was like, yeah! And then the roller skating went hard, people doing tricks.
Right, so you're watching the reaction that the records were having on the crowd.
Right.
Gotcha.
So last night DJ Saved My Life, I would listen to that at home, but when I saw what that did in front of a crowd, I knew that was a record to write down. This is a power record.
And so that's a vital skill as a DJ who wants to have a good live performance. You got to be able to look out and say, we need a little of this right now, or
right,
whatever the crowd, like,
but part of me was
keep
also
them on a high for a while, or whatever.
But part of me, while standing behind him, and there was kind of a barrier, a stone barrier separating, a brick barrier, where I could just rest my arms and look down at his record collection, and he's as far away as you are from me.
Right.
His back is turned. He's facing this glass thing that's facing the rink, and I'm looking at his back, moving, queuing up the record, playing the next record, watching the crowd reaction to the record. Some records were really popular. I wouldn't know that until I saw him play them and see the crowd reaction.
Right.
So when some records didn't work, I also took note of that too. And part of me was just like, so I could do that. I didn't have my own equipment, but I was looking at him going just like, this is easy. But he's not even beat mixing. He's not scratching or nothing, right? So that's what the cocky side of me was just like, man, let me back there. But then I would look to see where his skill really was knowing what songs, 4 songs in a row that people were like, oh my God, you know, he played Jermaine Stewart, We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off. Ooh. People were like, oh.
That's a jam, though.
Yeah, so, but he was playing R&B, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't playing a lot of rap stuff because it was still not really played out. So a lot of the crowd there was from all over the city. There was still like, even though a lot of us that lived, you know, in the North End were there was still a lot of people from like Bedford that didn't necessarily listen to hip hop. So he had to make both sides happy.
Right.
Throw in a little bit of rap here, but then go right to R&B and then play a pop song. He play like, what's the song? If you wanna ride, don't ride the white horse. That was a huge record there. So I would just write down just like, this filled the floor, this filled the floor, this filled the floor, and this filled the floor.
Right.
Let me get those. Let me have those in my collection. So it was kind of valuable to watch other DJs, to watch when they threw something on with the crowd reaction. And zoom up ahead. Paul was another person I used to watch because he would throw on a record and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he's playing this. And I would look at the crowd and the crowd is all going crazy. And what record?
Do you have an example of one of?
Yes, yeah. It was Outkast. Hey Ya. He threw on Hey Ya and I was turned my back in embarrassment. Like they're not going to get this. And I turn around and I look at the crowd and they're going, that was the song of the night.
Yeah.
So I was just like, are you serious? You know, and what reminded me of was Hey Mickey.
Yeah.
Hey Mickey, you so fine, you so fine.
You blow
So
my mind.
it
Hey,
reminded me, but I didn't think people would get that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I didn't think I thought everybody wanted to dance between 90 beats per minute, 105 beats per minute. And if you went outside of that, people cleared the dance floor. That's what I was in the know of for a little while. So for him to throw on something that's like 135 beats per minute and people dancing to it, I said, oh shit, well, I could also learn from the younger guys. You know, well, geez, okay, well, let me write that down. So it was, no matter how long you're a DJ, you're always going to find out from what other people are playing. If somebody's going to react to something, you have to like watch and say, why are people dancing to that? I guess at this point it's not that important, but it's important that like I get that record and incorporate that in there. It may not work for me. They might dance to him because he's him. But I don't know that yet. So let me figure that out. Let me get the record. and I would play Hey Ya a few times. But Paul has a personality behind the turntables where he will get from behind the turntables and dance in the crowd with his friends. So that also added to the hypeness. It's not just always what you play; it's what your personality as a DJ. Kid Capri was huge because he was a mic man. He did things on the mic nobody else would do. Like Dennis Edwards just passed away. Rest in peace, Dennis Edwards. There was a song called "Don't Look Any Further." It was the bass line for "Paid in Full" by Eric Ben Rakim, and the chorus they would go, "Omadeo, Omadeo, Mama G.I.O. Do do do
I remember that track.
Don't look any further." And when Kid Capri would play it, he's like, "You know the routine: a potato, potato, ham and cheese on toast." And what do you do next? And then you add a little butter. And he would change the lyrics and drop out the beat, and he would and then he'd be like tomato, tomato, and then he would sing. But it became his routine. Nobody else could do that. And other DJs would do that where they would drop out lyrics and fill in other words to make it comedic. So there's different ways to being a DJ. And I was watching everybody's method, and without biting other people, but just saying, okay, this works. Let me try the thing that is kind of like that, but let me put my own thing in it. This also works, so let me incorporate these two. And you build a brick house of styles. So it's more than just you playing. And for the longest time I was doing that. But as I was starting getting out to DJ, because I don't really DJ much anymore, I started to peel back because the newer kids don't get that. They don't understand it. And they go up to the turntables, can you stop talking on the beat? Can you stop yelling? You know, like as soon as it started, the age gap, the generation gap started to come around, I not stopped. My last regular DJ gig was at Tribeca.
Okay.
And it got to the point where I was making a lot of money, but my playlist, I hated my playlist.
Right.
I was playing ABBA every night. Wild Cherry played the funky music, stuff I would never play, but because the crowd wanted to hear it. And at one point, I had to figure out, is this what I want to be known for? And when the Tribeca night stopped, and Tribeca closed down, and it's now a parking lot. It got torn down. But there was a lot of politics and all that stuff going on. But when I was kind of forced out of that DJing thing, it became a time where I was at home, not DJing regularly anymore, saying, if I'm going to go back to DJing, I'm not going to do what I just did.
Right.
Because I let the crowd control. I was playing for them instead of me. It's supposed to be both. But the Palace crowd started showing up. And I was playing less underground and more, can you play Britney Spears? Can you play the stuff I would never play? And to make them part happy, I had to play the same playlist over and over again. At the end of the day, I got a huge amount of money, but it got to the point where it's like, it's not even about the money anymore. I hate my job. So when that closed down, I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And that's when Jeff started getting my edits. And I found out I don't need to be a DJ anymore. I need to make music for DJs.
Right.
Because everybody's playing a Milli. Everybody's playing Nicki Minaj. That's all they're playing. And how can you blame them? There's nothing else out there. So I said, let me make some cool shit that people don't have. So I started doing remixes. Like one that became popular that I was doing was I took what's the reggae artist, the really big, I think he was out of Canada, Sean
Paul?
Sean Paul.
Yeah, he's not Canadian.
Was he Canadian?
No, he just hooked up with Julie Black and Shaw Claire and all.
Okay, that's probably why I
Baby
mistaken.
Blue Sound Crew and shit.
Okay, so Sean Paul, I would take his acapellas of his singing and I'll put them over other beats. But a lot of the times, if you were just to beat mix them, he's not on key with the beat. So I would shift it on key so it sounds like he's naturally singing on the beat on key. And I make a bunch of those.
Make it better.
So when Jeff started getting those, I didn't need to be a DJ anymore. I'm now making music for the DJs. So that's where I am today. I DJ less because I'm supplying the world with music to change the directions of what's all popular. Because we've been in this rut for a long time.
I agree. Have you heard of a guy named Adrian Young?
Yes.
Yeah, I think what he's doing is interesting in like a similar, I mean, very different, but in that sort of like, let's make some fresh stuff to make good, music. But like, let's play. For people that don't know, Adrian Young and his
Something
band,
about April. He did that album. Did he do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he did all the music, I believe, that was used on the last Prime album, which is like Royce the 5'9" and Premiere. I'm pretty sure he did everything they use. Like,
Right.
They basically make music that's like sample rich. Like, it's great songs that work
Right.
on their own, but with the mindset, we want DJs to cut this. We want people to sample this.
When I first heard something about April, I thought it was a released soundtrack that came out in the 70s and was unearthed.
That's
I
what he
didn't
basically,
know-
like his dream. Like he
Right.
described it that way in an interview. Was like, that's what I want people to think
that's
it is.
what I
Something
thought.
we found.
Right. And I was making beats for Buck 65 at the time, using stuff from there, not knowing it was recent.
Yeah. I think what he's doing is really cool. Like in similar lane of like, we got to change this. We need some freshness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Dr. Falcon.
Oh, okay.
I think it's pronounced Falcon. Isn't
Yes, Dr. Falcon.
it? Who is Dr. Falcon?
You don't know who Dr. Do
Well,
you know
I-
who Dr. Falcon is?
Sometimes I ask leading questions.
He explained to me earlier who Dr. Falcon
I know
was.
somewhat.
Okay, you know the movie War Games.
Yeah.
Okay, you know about the plot of War Games, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a kid in his bedroom. He breaks into this system of a hidden server to play video games that are connected to the missile system, the United States, to launch missiles to the USSR. And it's so real that they can't tell the difference of if it's a game or the real thing.
So creepy when you consider drone drivers that are in Nevada right now, just like killing people, and
Yeah.
they're literally doing that now. Sorry.
So
keep going.
the movie got to the point where this kid breaks into the password. The FBI is looking for him. This machine is about to launch missiles going into the USSR. It was rumored that the guy that created this system was dead, but he wasn't. And they did their homework and they needed the password. So they had to hunt this guy down, Dr. Falcon, so they could change the course of where the impending doom was happening. But he was not easy to be found. So they went high and low, looked for him, and he was on some island in he was in hiding. And it's became what I became.
The reason I asked, of course, is that on your Instagram, which is where you're doing a lot of business right now,
Right.
You call yourself the Dr. Falcon of edits.
Right. Because everybody's trying to get a hold of me.
But I want to ask you something else. In that movie, there's also the sense of mutually assured destruction. I believe they
Yes.
talk about that. And that sort of one of the premise of that movie might be that the only way to win.
Is to not play the game.
Right. So you've picked this name or this moniker for yourself. If you did you pick it for yourself or did someone give it to you?
I gave myself the name.
Yeah. So the only way to win this game is
Is
not
to
play.
not play at all.
Can you expound on that a little?
Yes.
I think you have over the last few hours, actually. But
The reason why I chose that name and how it's kind of synced with that is I started getting discovered on my way out of the game. I was on my way out. I mean, like I was ready to sell my record collection, my equipment. Let's go have let's completely abandon this because I'm too old to be in this. There's nothing else I feel I can offer. That it's done. Now I'm not bitter about it, but everybody has their time, and it's time to move on. So the further I started walking away, the more people found me. The harder I went to leave this game behind me, the harder people went out of the way to go find me.
sounds like a mob movie.
But the thing is, I was satisfied. I was not like, fuck this shit. I'm done with this game. I had my fill, and it came from me that when I left Tribeca, and Gerald Flexman, shout out to Flexman, he wanted to have another funk night, and he was working hard to get it, but I was like, let it go. Yeah, but you were making so much money at the end. Let it go, dude. It's not even about the money anymore. You know, there was such a bad experience and bad taste in our mouth that I said, if we're going to do something off of All City Funk Box, because we had to change the name. It was part of the complication of the end of the Tribeca. We were called All City for almost 10 years. And then a fallout happened. We had to change the name. So we changed it to Funk Box. But I said, I like the Funk Box. So instead of playing the ABBAs and to play the funky music, let's play what we want. Let's turn it into a podcast.
Right.
Let's do that until I figure out what I'm going to do.
Hence, Funk Box Reloaded.
Right. The podcast was a bounce directly the opposite direction of what the end of Tribeca was. I was playing pop and disco that I hated. Now let me go back and play everything I loved that I would never play in
They're
the club.
incredible podcasts, man. Leading up to talking to you, I've been listening to them a little more heavily this week. I mean, I've listened to them on and off here and there, but this week I made sure to listen to a few more, kind of getting your head a little. And man, they're so good. As I was saying to you earlier, like I put one on and then it ends, and time has just kind of gone by, and I'm like, what carried me through that? Like they're such like a trip. I hate to say that. I don't mean like in a trippy way, but it carries you on this whole thing where I'm just like, what happened?
But you know what the whole blueprint of that? That's me trying to be that tape that I heard at the skiing trip. And that's the genesis of that's the pinpoint of what I'm trying to reference when I make Funk Box. There's some comedy in it. We make fake commercials for products that don't exist. Yeah. Because those tapes.
That's your parody side coming out.
Yeah, that's the parody side coming out. There's double copy of cutting up stuff. Some of the stuff I do remixes of, where I have the a cappella or the stems for the song, but I play a version of the song that stuff has been switched around, and you're not going to hear it. People have been asking me, it's like, where'd you get that version that's on Funk Box? That's not on my 12-inch, and it's like, because it's a remix. You know, so it's mine. It's that the Funk Box, the main formula is as many rewind moments as possible. That's pretty much what it is. So
nice.
If you're just mixing like kind of live on the spot, you're very limited on what you can do. So, but if you take time to edit this thing and really pack it like a Public Enemy album, stuff flies by you. You got to listen to it 20 times, and every time it's a different experience. Rewind that. Oh, what did he say there? Oh, what that was that thing that dropped? Oh, whoa. There's got to be as many of those as possible on the radio show, and that's kind of what the radio show was. And it was the opposite of what the Tribeca at the end was. It was predictable, boring, and top 10. And I said, let's do everything what we left Tribeca. Let's do everything that we don't want to do anymore.
Makes sense.
So that's what that was.
And you can tell you put the time into it too, because it's so well produced.
It takes a month to make.
Yeah. Oh, you can tell that you're putting that work in for sure.
Oh yeah.
They're super well put together, man.
I had a slightly different take, and I know it's of course your moniker for yourself, but on the winning the game by not playing, something I sort of see the way I observe you is at this point where you sort of like the way you described it makes sense. You know, the more you've moved away, the more you're sought out. I also feel like you've stuck to, and you just sort of brought it up. You brought up the tape again on the bus.
Right.
You've stuck to what you thought was dope and continued to isolate in on it almost to the molecular level in what you're doing recently, and isolating like the one piece.
Right.
Like as far down into that, and never wavered on knowing, I'm sure you've had doubts over the years, but knowing that your ear was something that knew dope shit, and you follow that, and trends came and went, things came and went, but you still sit here in 2018 and say, I know what sounds dope to me, and I make that shit to that quality, and those who love it, love it. And so I took it that way when I was thinking about you. I was thinking, there's another way to win, which is like follow your passion and don't let all this shit move you around.
Don't play the game.
All the games.
Don't play the game that's happening
so
around.
That's sort of
you.
how I was taking your own moniker as I thought about it.
Yeah, it's partly that. I mean, now that you've put it that way,
feel free.
Yeah, feel free. Take it.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
What was the record you gave Jazzy Jeff the first time he came here?
Oh, I bought a 45 for him at Taz. It was called it was a Canadian funk record. It's called "Do the Fuddle Duddle" by the House of Commons. You know what the reference of Fuddle Duddle is?
I think I do.
Trudeau, not the Trudeau that's in now, but the other Trudeau.
Yeah.
They're having a debate in the House of Commons, and he swore. He said the F word, and they're like, "What did you say?" And his response was, "Fuddle Duddle," like Flintstone and Miss Frederick J. So yeah, Fuddle Duddle. So it became a running joke for a long time, and that group called themselves the House of Commons. They did a one-off record, and they call it "Do the Funky Fuddle Duddle" or the Fuddle Duddle. The other side was the Funky Fuddle Duddle or something like that. So they just made a song about it. It was a parody, but it was a funky record.
Nice.
And it was a Canadian funk group. I don't even know who they were branched off from. That's the only record that I know of that House of Commons thing that came out. Don't know who the musicians were or anything. It was 45. It was piano and drums.
Fuddle Duddle.
Joe,
I was just the reason why I asked because I was there to witness that.
Oh, you were
You
there?
were there?
I watched it because you were going down the stairs to Scoundrels,
Right.
and I was looking over the thing, and I watched you give him, and he was like, "Where did you get this?" And he was blown away. Jeff's reaction was crazy.
so
The bouncer
was he
didn't-
blown
wasn't-
away because he knew what that was and how dope it was, or was he
He had
like,
no idea.
"This is cool just because you're giving me a cool gift"?
I said because I've been buying his records since his first record ever came out, so I wanted to at least give something back. I know that, and I met him at Revolution Records earlier that day, and we had a common person in Philly that we knew. It was Soul Man. They knew each other, so when I met him at Nick's store, I said, "Jeff, you know Soul Man?" He was like, "Yeah, I know Soul Man." And I was like, "Yeah, like me and him trade records all the time." He's like, "Yeah, cool." So, and he smiled, he was like, "Wow, someone from Halifax, I know somebody from Philly."
Yeah.
And then it made it easier to meet up with him later. And the bouncers were not going to let me meet him.
No.
He was surrounded by girls in the club or whatever who couldn't name a single song he put out. But I had the trouble to go and see him. And I said, "Listen, I'm just going to hand him a record and I'll get out. Give me 10 seconds. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm too old for this shit. I just want to give him a record." The bouncers were making it so difficult. And it got to the point where I was yelling at the bouncers, "Let me the fuck in. Just stop giving me a hard time. Do I look like I'm going to be trouble?" So they let me in. They said, "You got 10 seconds and we're throwing your ass out." So I went over to Jeff and I made it real short. I said, "I know you didn't have time to go digging when you were here. I dig this up for you. Thank you for your show, blah, blah. Goodbye." Turned my back, and I left. I didn't even really see his reaction. But
He remembered that.
from there, I went to the pizza corner. I got a slice of pizza. 45 minutes, I walked back home on the highway, and I passed through the club. Everybody's already cleared out the club. It's like 3:30 in the morning. The street is dead. And the truck that's loading his stuff is there, and he's standing by the truck by himself, no bouncers near him, is nobody out in the street. And I walked past him, and I said, "Hope you enjoyed the record." And that's when I got to have a conversation with them. No bouncers telling me, "You can't," these girls like, "Who are you? You shouldn't be talking to Jeff." All those people were out of the equation. It was just Jeff standing outside this load truck, 3:30 in the morning, looking at the 45 still in his hand, going, "What the hell is this?" He was still literally holding the record, staring at it, trying to figure out what it was. And that's when I walked past him. I said, "Hope you enjoyed the record I gave you." And he was like, "Thanks so much for this," And then I walked home on the highway.
So all these years later, when you wind up at his house, does he remember this interaction with you?
He kind of does, but keep in mind, and I also keep in
DJ
mind,
Jazzy Jeff.
you're right, and he meets a lot of people, but he does kind of remember that.
Cool.
you know.
Very cool. I never forget any interaction I have with you. I consider all of them to be an honor. You, as we've gone over in the last while, none of us would be able to be here and set up something like this and talk about the culture of Halifax hip hop if it wasn't for JoRun.
Straight up.
We still need to hit up the school though.
Yeah,
Before they tear it down.
we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Big time. Thank you so much for coming into the cut. I'm wondering if there's anybody that you wanted to shout out or anybody you wanted to kind of, give props to as we head out here.
That's really putting me on the spot. I
all
usually
right.
give the props to the people as I talk to them on the spot.
There we do. Yeah,
So
that's cool.
uh,
That's cool.
That's pretty much it.
What about a track that we should send to people out on? Something that, either you just really like, maybe something that you'd, we're going to wrap it up. We'll send it this way. JoRun on the cut.
You want me to choose?
Yeah.
I'd rather you guys choose.
Yeah? We
I'd
can
rather
do
you-
it.
I'd rather you guys choose it because
All right, we'll choose it.
I have so many recordings out there. I get lost in my recordings. I somebody asked me for what's your top 3, and I'm like, you could probably answer that better than I can. 'Cause, I work on something and I'm off to the next thing, and it's been like
You
that.
got to
for-
clear some space in those memory banks with all that stuff in there, man.
But if I focus on one work,
Yeah.
I can't move on to the next thing.
You got to get it done before you go.
Get it
Well,
done, move it away.
Right, move it away on to the next thing. That's
Right.
how I got so much stuff out there.
Right.
It's like I complete it. I don't stick around and pat myself on the back or nothing like that. I finish it, bang, it's out there.
What if you had, instead of like a shout out or a track we're going to throw to, what if you had like just a one-line message of encouragement or a message of like, a career advice? Just
Oh,
something.
I can't give advice, dude.
Yeah, you can. I think
can't give-
you've given a lot that you don't even realize during the time talking.
But
to
it's
me.
such a
the hustle. You see something in your way, own it. Become the best at it. All these things are things that people should be pulling advice from, in my opinion. I certainly am. I'm encouraged. As I said to you earlier, even we're learning what we're doing better and better. We see a hurdle, we got to embrace it and learn how to do it. That's
It's
stuff
such a-
that's great. I'm
it's
just
such
wondering
a-
if there's something you wake up in the morning and sort of go, this gets me going, or this powers me through.
I think that's too deep of a question.
Well,
think
that's for
it's-
part 2.
Yeah, it's too
All right,
deep of a question.
JoRun Bombay on the cut. Part 2 is going to happen in the future.
We're going to have
It's
to.
got to have to.
Okay.
See, we left it
There's
hanging
way
like that.
more-
I got to bring you back to a whole philosophical episode. We don't talk about music at all. We just
There's
talk
way
about
more we can
life
talk about.
and humans.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole other 2.
And that trip to the school.
Is happening.
Do you have a GoPro? You don't have a GoPro.
We got GoPros.
We got GoPros?
We got
Okay,
all
I got a
kinds of
GoPro
stuff.
too. Because I need to get some footage for myself too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we need to get in there. You guys probably have better connections to get in that school than I do.
We'll see what we can do.
I'll be
Let's
on
make
it
it happen.
tomorrow.
It'd
I'll
be
be on it
really
tomorrow.
important to get footage. They're about to tear down a major hip hop Halifax landmark.
Cradle.
And you can't experience it from the outside. You need to be inside the building, and I need to point out where things happened, where the MCs were, who the groups, where they were formed, the things, the
want all that.
lifestyle. It needs to happen
It does.
before the building gets torn down.
Let's make it happen, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on the cut.
Thank you for having
We
me.
will talk to you very soon.
Cool.
DJIV.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming.
As
through, my
always.
man.
Yep.
Listen, people, have a fantastic week. We'll see you soon. Tell the people that you care about. Helps round off the sharp corners of the world. Makes it a little easier for us all to move in now. JoRun Bombay.
I want to know if everybody in the house here tonight just came to rock. Y'all come to rock or what? Y'all come to rock or what? Hey, you all came to rock? Why they sitting down? Ain't that something? Why y'all sitting down if you came to rock? Get your ass up off the floor. Come on now. Who else we got in the house? We got Universal Soul representing the baritone soul in the house. What's up? One time. Yeah, who else in the house? My man Rough Neck, like I was saying. My man MC Skills. Yeah, Hip Hop Groove's in the house tonight. Stinking Richards in the house tonight. What's up, y'all? My main man Dion Security trying to come over here. Pow! Infirmary. Oh, you didn't know Shingai had the flow. Yeah, I'm Shingai, by the way. I'm your MC for the night. And let you guys know what else is coming down on the run-up. Like I was saying, we got Hip Club Groove, we got Papa Grand will be in the house later on. We got MC Skills, we got Witch Dog, we got 6'2". So let's keep this party going. This shit's really cooking up. We're going all night long. I want to introduce my man MC Skills. Baddest motherfucker on the East Coast. Blowing up like the Grey Ghost. Here we go.
Yeah, come on now. Get into it. First off, I want to bounce. Come on. Give me a bounce. Come on.
people. Represent, you know what I'm saying? Represent from Dartmouth to Halifax. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this. Come on now. We're gonna come on freestyle on the mic. We're gonna drop something on the mic.
My
6'2", 6'2",
I got suckers on my dick from coast to coast. If you wanna see nuts, get in line, it's a mad rhymer. Fat pizza flows get checked on the regular. Style that's irregular, I go straight for your jugular vein. Fucking up vitals with my recital. Making bitches out of idols as I'm snatching up the titles and making MCs wonder how did I get into this. Fuck them in the face and make the dick feel like a glitter. I shall proceed and continue to fuck up your whole life, kid. Word is what I rock on, it's the baddest wigger. Catch a record, got action like a fucking figure. Stretch on strong, rock longer, got no room on my nuts. People hanging off my donga.
You know what I'm saying? What the fuck? I still ain't seen no goddamn hands in the air. What the hell is wrong with you people? Come on now. Give me some energy. Give me some energy. Come on. Come on, rip that shit up. Who's next on the mic? Who's next on the mic? Who got the mic next? Who got a freestyle? You coming up, cuz? What you saying?
1, 2. Off the head like this, I see a crowd of a bunch in the cafe, olay. I do it off the head, so what the fuck do you say? I did it 5 years ago cause I thought the shit was funky. Now I got a record getting sold across the country. So what you say, I grab a dick and say, whoa, Jack Love's in the place to kick a fat man flow. On your ass, I do it off the head, I got long braids. When I'm at a cheesy party, I can play charade. Baby, sorry, or checkers, I got like checkered floors when I get rhymes galore. So what can I say? I pass the microphone to the next man. Get on the mic and freestyle like you can. So I said, don't demand your biz. I pass the microphone to my man, Fizz.
Give it, yo, what's up? Give me some love. What's up? How's everybody feeling tonight? Come on now, let me hear it. How's everybody feeling tonight? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Yo, it's the F to the I to the Z in the house. The baritone of soul. Yo, you know what the program is? Yeah, you clip while you trip, but you still can't step. Oh my God, nigga, you're trying to hawk, but even makes me hit trouble with the sauce. The baby, I'm cooling in the shade. I'm pulling on a switchblade in a verse, pulling on a chorus in top soul, thick layer after layer. My zodiac sign, this chorus is the one. Even though my brother's in April, maybe make my syrup on toast this week, but I'm sweeter. They flicker like the bit as a cigarette burns, drop ass on the side like a bass that's firm. So from the baritone, light skin face, hot like corn, but my people call them mace. I raise from the clouds while I get one out to work, lurk in Montreal, but now live in Halifax. Will access a kick with the universal flow. Cutting out styles, the last to hear the person's go. I'll make it pleasant park as I walk through the dark to twink to my loo, my dog. While the craze just hits the crates that I'm hauling. The rhythm one's the rhyme, while the rhyme one's the rhythm. 2 shades of black and a soul that be hitting. So go all around from the right to the left. Or would you rather have a played on cassette? Yo, we live with Cafe Lake. Yo, who's next? Who's next to rock it? Who wants it? Who wants a piece of it? Show something. We showing and proving tonight.
Down to brass tacks. These lower class Macs get dropped on their ass cracks. Me and my gas mask immune to any vapors. Fume I maintain integrity despite the snakes really consume the boa constricts. With the strength of the flow when I kicks, no one expects to hear screams down low in the mix. I'm taking hostages back to the mill. Draw blood from the blade of the skill saw. Check. Try to concentrate on the design. Let me lay it on the line. I'm in an ill state of mind. So show me something. I'll make you my apprentice. Your front, I'll send your ass to see the dentist. Say all like an army protects the queen. And she's I flex between like a sex machine. No guts, no glory. I got this mic in my hand, baby. So what's your story? So who's up next to flex? Huh? Check it out. Next to nothing is my wealth. I'm cruising like a stealth, hitting hard like a dude with a black belt. The Kung Fu 1, 2. This beat is made for talking and for walking. You can bet I got prop shoes, not the stripes or the stars. Cause I'm getting superstar status when I kick it in the front yard. Like picket fences, I'm white and I'm on point. You disappoint like a run in a big joint. Speaking of which, I say, damn it, I used to cram it into my lungs until I took the high for granted. And then I wigged like the dope pig that I was. I
I took a break and I was just cruising friendly buzz. But off the topic, I used to break to rocket. And when I did the backspin, the shit fell out my pockets. I haven't broken in a while, ever since breaking 1-2 Beach Street and Wild Style. Check it out.
Yeah,
Who's up next?
real hip hop in the house tonight. All right now.
You make it groovy, I make a doozy. So other people, they do nothing, they will not amuse me. I'm like the foreskin, it's hanging off your jock strap. I'm taking off your bra strap, I hit you with my raw rap. It's all that girl and just a little bit more. I'm Luke the Skywalker, still the fast talker. I check the doc because he's always in command. And then we always drop the shit and keep the 40 into the hand. Back to the matter, cause my bugs are getting fatter. I'll be treating you like a hamburger, kid, I'll be serving you like a platter. Take out the rebels, we got the fame. Helltown Project still in the game, kid.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honey drippers in the house tonight. They just got back from Washington, D.C. I think they got something they want to say.
Oh my God, who is he? Okay, yo, check this out, check this out. We got somebody here who ain't on the roster. This is my main man Tyrone representing. Joe, you keep that beat going. Tyrone's cool. Tyrone has got some shit for y'all. He gonna throw, cause he can throw. I'll vouch for him, you know what I'm saying? My boy can throw. So go do your shit, Papa.
You know what I'm saying? It's on up in this motherfucker tonight. What's up, baby? We about to kick it off. I'm only small, but I can rock it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I grab my steel hub like titanium. I'm versatile like aluminum. Mix like rum, got the taste, got the right one, baby. Ask Ray Charles, your rappers are comics, talking fly girls and cars. No man's land has expanded to fit you. I inhale you, gargle you, and then spit you. My hair keeps you round, brown skin, broken looks. It's poetry with a reason, so rap it overlooked. I rise the acclamation when I step into your zone. Little punk, pass the mic and grab my T-bone, cut the song. The man with 23 reasons, within 24 hours, I put your rap to season. You best to keep both hands on your mic, or I have to steal up like monkey bones in daylight. I'm hitting like my name was Ken the Griffey. I got my boys and crew saying Tyrone to shit. Shut up, plug her up so I can press my board. Call the what you want, Charles, use the pearls. I'm going way the hell beyond jurisdiction. Flying, I say I couldn't rap, but I'd be lying. So now begins the era of this one kid's terror. Destroying all at once, so back up and beware. I tear rip through opposition with no perspiration. I'll be the number 7 star next to Constellation. So scared, move your head to the hop, to the rock. Hip hop won't stop, so I'm closing all country shops and it's on. Yeah, we about to run along. Get out this motherfucker, I'm long gone, bitch. Can't rock the mic, baby. Who can't rock the mic? Who can't rock the mic? Get off me, everyone, whole crew, get off.
Represent, yeah.
What I tell you, I like
You want some?
I like it, baby. I like it. Represent, I like it.
Yeah, what's up? Representing Helltown, motherfuckers.
Hold on, you gotta step off the stage. I'm sorry, but you're not in the show tonight. Right, okay, see a piece by a Ricky Jersey and all that. Alright, first and foremost, you know what I'm saying? My name is Skills, you know what I'm saying? I'll be ready for some hardcore shit tonight, cause that's all I bring. I bring rough hardcore for all hip-hop peoples in the house. You know what I'm saying? Now, right now, this I want y'all to do for me. Alright, look, right there, that's my DJ. That's JoRun. We call him the witch doc. We call him the
DJ
witch
JoRun in the house.
Right, but you know what I want you to do?
DJ JoRun, all kinds of skills throwing up, blowing up here. 95. What's that?
Rock the jam!
What's that?
I said rock the jam!
What the fuck is that?
I said rock the jam!
He said rock the jam, y'all. Rock the jam, y'all. Yo.